Hosting services for fctv.org are provided by MegaNet Communications. MegaNet offers a wide array of internet services including Mega Backup Cloud Service, server colocation, T1, fiber, Metro Ethernet, as well as telephone services such as hosted PBX and digital voice. Their number one goal is to keep your communications network up and running and allow you to focus on growing your business. 877-634-2638 or meganet.net.
Call this meeting to order, the open session for August 14, 2017, and state that I'm going to make a motion to go into executive session under General Laws Chapter 30A, Section 21A3 to discuss the resolution of all turbine litigation, and also under General Laws 30A, Section 21A3 to discuss the status of pending Liberty Green litigation for the reason that to not go into executive session for either of those matters would prejudice the position of the town, and I'm also going to move that we return to open session.
Second.
By roll call.
Brown, aye.
Patterson, aye.
Moran, aye.
Jones, aye.
Thank you. Okay, off we go. Welcome everyone to the Monday, August 14, 2017 Selectmen's meeting. We have come back from an executive session. We're now in the 7 o'clock open session. I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation today. Sam, do you want to do the honor?
Sure. But maybe I should mention up front, I've got a conflict for tomorrow, so I don't know whether any of the other board members might be available to present this or not.
Think about that.
Whereas Thomas Dvorak of Boy Scout Troop 42 has successfully completed qualifications for the rank of Eagle Scout, a rigorous and demanding process that teaches patience, perseverance, and teamwork, and requires strong goal setting. And Thomas Dvorak met these challenges with aplomb and shall be recognized as an outstanding representative of his family, his troop, and Falmouth. And the Boy Scouts of America, long acknowledged for building fine citizens, calls for a special court of honor to award its highest symbol of achievement to those who complete this rank. And whereas Thomas Dvorak is now an Eagle Scout with all its rank and privilege, now therefore we, Susan L. Moran, Megan English Braga, Doug Jones, Samuel H. Patterson, and Douglas C. Brown, as selected in the town of Falmouth, do hereby declare and proclaim tomorrow, Tuesday, August 15th, 2017, as Thomas Dvorak Day. In witness thereof, we have hereunto set our hand and caused the great seal of the town of Falmouth to be affixed.
Is Tom here?
Well, I don't see him.
He did invite us to the Code of Honor. I just want the board
Court of
to
Honor, yeah.
take note.
And I can just say, I know Tomas, it's actually how he says, and his dad, and he's a great kid.
Good to hear.
Wonderful accomplishment. Is there a motion?
Well, I guess I'll call that the motion.
Right.
Anybody second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations, John.
Braga?
And what time is that?
Recognition?
Yes, just wanted to recognize there was an event on the Village Green on Sunday, so I just want to say a big thank you to No Place for Hate, and to Engage Falmouth, and to some of the other organizers who really at the last minute put together an event to really stand in solidarity against what we've seen happening in Charlottesville, Virginia. And so it was wonderful to see really quite a number of individuals from our community there, just having a peaceful gathering, and again, just a testament to how quickly individuals in this community are able to come together and really make a statement about what Falmouth stands for and what we stand against. So a big thank you to them for doing that.
And I noticed Congressman Keating was also in attendance,
Yes.
which I thought was really a great statement on his part as well. Just in terms of announcements, I was asked by Sandra Feynman to announce that actually right now between 6:30 and 8:30 at the Falmouth Public Library, there's a briefing and signature gathering with respect to paid family medical leave and the $15 minimum wage. So if folks are interested, you can hustle on over there or contact Sandra at sfeynman@aol.com. Next, we have the public comment. If there's anyone here who wishes to speak for less than 2 minutes on any item that is not on today's agenda without making any personal remarks, you're welcome to do so now. Ron?
Good evening and thank you. I'm the Cape Light Compact representative for the town of Falmouth, and I come here often to mention that the Cape Light Compact's energy efficiency program is open to all of us, and that if one way to get in touch and to find out about the various programs, which include a special program now on about insulation and appliances, light bulbs, the whole range of things within your home. You can call 1-800-797-6699, and that is for businesses, for residents, for residential properties as well as rental properties, and there's a lot of advantages in a lot of different ways. Also, there's a low-income program that's also supported by the Cape Light Compact by the Housing Assistance Corporation, and people may qualify for that. And I would like to encourage folks to, and that number is 508-771-5400. And as I always say, our operators are waiting. So give a call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Finneran?
Mark Finneran, Precinct 6. 6 or 8 weeks ago in the Enterprise was an article regarding the Selectmen hoping to improve better lines of communication with the people in the town and the taxpayer. And it was a fairly long article, and it listed a number of things and goals that they had, which I think are great. And one of the quotes was, Selectmen were worried about the disinformation or the dissemination of disinformation within the community. And that's what I'd like to speak about. A few weeks ago regarding our filtration plant, I asked some questions of the DTW director, and it was my understanding at that point in time that our filtration plant, which the people of this town paid for, and spent $50 million for, roughly, is not operating simply because we do not have someone qualified to operate it. I was told at that point that I was incorrect. So I went and called the DEP. Actually, I spoke to the man who's overseeing the job, Jim McLaughlin, and he told me, in fact, that was the case. And he expressed frustration. He said he's spending most of his time trying to find us an operator to run that plant. Further, he said that he didn't understand why that the town thought that they were going to get a waiver and they wouldn't be held to the same standards that all other towns are. And he told me that that was They rarely give waivers, and they would never give one to a town that's on probation, and our town's been on a probationary status since 2013 because every quarter our water quality fails. The same evening, I asked about the flushing in our water system,
10 seconds.
and I was told that it was done 3 times in the last 27 years. I spoke to numerous town employees, and it was done nearly completely in 95 or 96, and hasn't been done since then. And I think the proof of this is the fact that we had to hire an engineering firm to tell us how to do it, because all the people that had that experience are long since gone.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, we'll hit to the summary of actions. If anyone wants to hold one, please let me know. The first one is a license application, special one-day all-alcohol liquor license for Boston Butler B&B post-race event at the Cape Cod Fairgrounds, 1220 Nathan Ellis Highway on Sunday, August 20th, 2017. The second one, B, is approve application for a special one-day wine and malt liquor license, Woods Hole Historical Museum, 579 Woods Hole Road, Friday, August 25th, 2017. C, approve application for a special one-day wine and malt liquor license, Falmouth Track Club, post-race event, Falmouth Historical Society, 55 Plymouth Ave, Sunday, October 29, 2017.
I have a question on that one.
Hold on C. D is approve application for special one-day wine and malt liquor license, Cape Cod Canal Region Chamber, Scallop Fest, Cape Cod Fairgrounds, 1220 Nathan Ellis Highway on September 22nd through 24th, 2017. Is there a motion on A, B, and D?
I move approval of A, B, and D.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. With respect to C, Mr. Jones.
I guess I'd just like to have a description as to where it is going to be set up at the Historical Society for this event, and what time, what the hours are.
Ms. Kennedy.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Helen Kennedy, the Cape Cod Marathon Director. The tent is going to be set up in the driveway of the Village on the Green, like we did last year. They've given us permission to set up a tent there.
And I didn't see what the hours, what they're going to be actually serving. It says
It's going to be probably from 12 noon to about 3:30.
Well, it says 10:45 to 3:30 on the,
Yeah. The setup
Application
starts
fee.
about 10:30, but the runners don't really get, it's a marathon, so it takes a while for them to get to the finish.
So would 10:45 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. as noted on the license work for you?
Yes.
But the idea is it's not really going to be serving alcohol, beer on Main Street for 5 hours. The expectation really is it's more like 3 hours,
Yes.
and it's for the runners.
Yes. It's only for the runners. Every runner will have a ticket on their bib number, and when they finish the race, they go into the beer tent and they rip off their beer ticket and they get a free beer.
Had I known. Any other questions?
I think there's still plenty of time to sign up for the marathon.
Yes. Please do. Have a relay team.
Any motion?
I move approval.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. Next on to administrative orders. The first is to consider a request for waiver of conflict of interest requested by Michelle O'Brien, who's an attorney at Pierce Atwood. Is anyone here on behalf of that firm? Mr. Suso, do you want to tee that one up?
Madam Chair, yeah, we transmitted to the board information received from Michelle O'Brien that she, of course, is representing the town in the Snyder case with Conservation Commission. One of her colleague attorneys would be representing the owner of the, I believe it was a catamaran that burned in the Falmouth Inner Harbor. And there is a claim from the town against that owner. And Michelle has indicated that in her judgment, although there is on paper a potential conflict since both attorneys are with the same firm, she did not feel that it would compromise her ability to continue to represent the town in the Snyder case. If the board differed with that, then they would just not be able to represent the boat owner. So it would be certainly the judgment call of this board as to what your preference is.
Just to be clear, I think you mean the Smythe case.
I'm sorry, the Smythe case. Forgive me. Thanks for that clarification.
Any discussion by the board?
I read it, it seemed like a fair disclosure, and it didn't seem like it would be a problem.
Any motion?
I would move that we accept the disclosure, and is that a proper motion?
And a waiver for the conflict
And
of
a waiver
interest.
for the conflict, yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have a request to authorize a letter of concern for proposed Eversource rate increase. Mr. Susi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have prepared a draft letter raising a number of issues related to the proposed Eversource rate increase. And I want to thank Maggie Downey with the Cape Light Compact for her assistance, along with Ron Swag as well, a representative there, on issues and concerns with that proposed rate increase. And perhaps if Maggie would be so willing, she might be able to make a few comments and answer questions that the board may have.
Ms. Downey, would you mind? Just if you would start after your introduction with what's at risk here.
Sorry. So good evening. I also have Austin Brandt with me, who is a staff person really responsible. So I can give a very high overview, but I might ask him to come up if you have specific questions.
Sure.
So I was asked to prepare a letter by the Town Managers Association for each of our 15 towns for them to bring back to their boards of selectmen and town council, which I did. I drafted the Cape Light Compact through Ron as your representative, voted to intervene in the Eversource rate case. Eversource filed a rate case in January of this year, and then significant updates on June 1st. A rate case is on a regulated time frame, so this decision has to be made within the 2017 calendar year. So there are a few issues that the compact, as part of an intervener in reviewing the case, that we would like to bring to your attention for consideration. In order of importance maybe to me, the first is they are proposing to shift approximately $30 million annually in costs from Eastern Massachusetts C&I and residential customers, as well as cost from Eastern Massachusetts commercial customers, all onto residential customers. So this is of concern for two reasons. One is because the costs are associated with improvements and other grid-related in Western Massachusetts, not in Eastern Massachusetts, and it's also a cross-subsidization between rate customers, commercial customers, and residential rates. So this is an issue that we've raised in the proceeding and asked that it not be allowed, and I wanted to make sure that we brought it to the board's attention. Again, it's the amount of money, $30 million of Western Mass cost, and then the cross-subsidization piling on commercial costs, all on the backs of the old Electric service territory in rates. Also of concern is the doubling of the fixed customer charge for the residential ratepayers. This is of concern because right now we pay our electric bills based on a per kilowatt hour charge. So shifting, and that is really the only way as customers we can control our electric bills. You can use less through energy efficiency, curtailment, good old-fashioned just shutting off the lights and increasing the thermostats if you have electric heat, etc. But by rearranging how we pay our bills and moving cost into a higher fixed customer charge, you don't have that ability to impact and control and lower your electric bill. So we are not supporting, and it impacts adversely energy efficiency, which was what Ron was promoting earlier. So that is, again, the second biggest concern for us. And the other is their return on equity. They are requesting 10.5%, and we really have just complimented the Attorney General's office. She has taken the lead on this. It is one of the highest. They're requesting one of the highest rates of return in a regulated utility in the United States. So again, we're opposed to such a high rate of return, and they should be, the national average, just an FYI, is about 9.3%. And then the last is the proposed new demand charges for renewable customers. And again, for those who install, solar PV on our homes, you'll be facing higher fixed customer charges. And again, it's the shifting of the costs. And then what's not in the letter, but I'll just put this on your radar screen, is the net metering credits, which I know the town has with your proposed solar array. I don't really know where that is. That will have an adverse financial impact on our municipalities. That is a double-edged sword because we all pay for those net metering credits, but a lot of our towns, it will have a significant budgetary impact by lowering the value of the net metering credits. So those are that's like my 35,000 foot level, and if any specifics, I might defer to Austin on that.
Very helpful, thank you. Any more questions from the board?
No, I think
Any
it's great
motion?
that they brought this to our attention and developed this letter for us. Very helpful.
I move approval of this letter and charge the town manager to actually execute it for us.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great,
Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you, have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Next, we have a question to authorize the town manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with HUI regarding the Seaport grant funding that has been before the board before. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board several months ago had authorized a joint application with HUI for Seaport grant funding, and as the board is aware, we've been very fortunate to receive that grant. One of the portions of the grant indicates a supplemental memorandum of understanding. A draft of that has been presented to the board, and I would respectfully request your authorization for me to execute a memorandum of understanding as presented.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve it.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next, we have vote to accept a donation from Ronald Newcomb Basketball Tournament fundraiser in the amount of $500 to the Rec Department for future programs for children and teens. Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second,
All those-
with gratitude.
With gratitude.
That's a pretty fast turnaround.
That is a
Mr.
Yeah.
Newcomb was just before us at our last meeting, and now he's donating $500. So huge thanks to him and all that he's trying to do.
Absolutely. All in favor?
And also
Aye.
thanks to Rec Department, because it looks like this was actually held at the Rec Center, not at the Sandwich Park where it was originally scheduled to be.
Originally proposed.
I think the weather changed that, and I think they
Good
made
point.
adjustments at the last minute to be able to do it at the Rec Center.
Sipped
good.
into action. And just to be sure, the vote. All those
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, under special events, I'm going to go through the events. If anyone wants to hold, let me know.
We have one more grant.
We have one more.
Oops, I skipped one.
Early childhood resource center.
Oh, I'm
You
using
have
an
a-
old, sorry,
here.
there was one added I didn't catch. I'm not using the purple one. Okay, so the next one is to authorize, thank you, the town manager to accept a grant from the Mass Department of Early Education and Care to the Falmouth Public Library for fiscal year 2018, 19, and 20 in the amount of $7,000 per year. That's terrific.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is essentially a formula-type grant, and I'm advised by our library director that this year the Massachusetts Department of Early Education has sort of batched these together in a 3-year package, so I would ask your concurrence in allowing this to go forward and these grants to be accepted for that 3-year package, which is a change from the way this has occurred in the past.
Sam?
I know the Finance Committee is always concerned about locking ourselves into costs in the future by accepting grants. We've obviously vetted this before, and there's not going to be any
Correct.
obligations like employment for somebody if that grant dries up.
It's used to purchase
It's purchasing materials and things related to early childhood
Good enough.
matters, so, yeah.
May I just clarify along those lines that we're still, and I think I'm almost 100% sure the answer is yes, but that on a regular timeline, that the process is still that the subcommittee of Finance Committee is reviewing the grants and then letting you know what their thoughts are?
That is routinely done. This
Okay.
one came in
No, I understand.
in
for
a
this
twist to
one.
us that was a 3-year package that was not anticipated.
But it's not a new, we're familiar with this anyway. so.
Correct.
We are.
And it does create no future obligations.
Right.
Good
Great.
questions. Is there a motion?
So move that we accept this grant. I guess it's the right verb to put in there.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, back to special events, and as I said, please hold anything as the board desires. The first one is the David Lewis 5K start-finish from Gosnold on Terhune Drive, Saturday, September 2nd, 2017. The second is the Falmouth Dream Cruise, 2/3 of Shore Street Extension on Saturday, September 23rd, 2017. The next is the Autumn Escape Bike Trek ride through Falmouth, Friday and Saturday, September 22nd through 23rd. And the next is the Buzzards Bay Watershed Ride Bike Path to MBL Swope Building, Sunday, October 1st, 2017. Is there a motion?
Go ahead, Sam.
No, go ahead.
Move approval?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the new recommended. The first one I'm going to hold, it's the Kerwin Murray Memorial Bike Ride, start to finish Surf Drive Beach on Sunday, October 22nd, 2017. The next is the Zip Trip to Falmouth, Falmouth Heights Ball Field, Friday, August 18, 2017. The next is Drum Circle Lesson with Capabilities at the Band Shell. We're going to hold that. It's August 22nd, September 11th, 25th, October 10th, and October 24th. The next is the Derek Winton Memorial Fundraiser at Chappaquiddick Beach on Saturday, September 9, 2017. The next is Sunset at Chappaquiddick Beach on Tuesday, August 15, 2017. Then we have 3 wedding ceremonies. The first is Surf Drive, Mill Road, Buckwald, on Saturday, May 27th, 2018. The next is at Old Silver, Stanley, on Sunday, September 16, 2018. And the next is for parking only, Bristol Beach Lot, Saturday, September 15, 2018. Is there a motion on the ones not held?
On the 3 wedding ones, the first 2 are looking for the wedding on the beach and also use of the parking lot, right? And I just want to clarify that I thought our new policy, or what our policy actually was as written, and we wanted to clarify, is they actually get charged both for the fee for the use of the beach and the fee for the parking lot. And on these, it does not indicate. So these, so the first 2 is the permit fee of $150, and the third is just $75 for the parking. And on these forms, it also does remind these families that while they have the parking lot, it is not reserved for them, and they just have the parking lot if their space is available. And I just want to reiterate that over the TV screen in front of people also, that they may be thinking that they have 25 spots available to park for their wedding and show up and there are 5 spots available, and they just need to be conscious of that.
Absolutely true.
So, with that, I would move approval of all those that have not been held.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone here from the Kerwin Murray Memorial Bike Ride? Would you like to just tell us a little bit about the event, Mr. Patrick?
Good evening, Madam Chair. I'm Matt Patrick and board members. I'm Matt Patrick, and I'm a volunteer for Falmouth Housing Corporation, and we're putting together this Peter Kerwin, Bob Murray Memorial Bike Ride. We hope to make it an annual event. It's a fundraiser specifically for the Falmouth Homeless Prevention Program, which is a fund used only in Falmouth by the Falmouth Housing Corporation, focused directly on keeping people in their homes during times of crisis or financial hardship. Instead of trying to find new homes for people or new housing, it's much more cost-effective to keep people in their homes by paying that utility bill that they couldn't make, that they couldn't pay because somebody was sick, or something like that. So things like that, those emergencies that come up, the car gets messed up, they miss a payment, they can't make the mortgage payment. That's when the Homeless Prevention Fund would be used. It would not be used for any other items, administrative costs or anything like that by the Falmouth Housing Corporation. We're getting lots of interest. I just want to tell our people, our TV audience, that they can go to falmouthhousingcorporation.org/bike ride. This is the colorized version of what I gave you guys last time. It's actually Peter Kerwin's son did this, Zach Kerwin. And I think it's a nice job. Everybody can take a look. That's what they'll find at the Slash Bike Ride. So those, I'll try to keep it to a minimum. If you have any questions, I'd hope to answer
I
them.
do have, one of my neighbors approached me this morning and questioned the rain date on the 29th and thought that that actually is the date of the Cape Cod Marathon.
It is.
And here you're talking about running 2 different events on the same course? That seems like,
Well, then that's an oversight on our part.
okay.
That
So I would suggest that we not approve the rain date because we don't want to create a massive conflict.
We were actually having questions about whether we wanted to have a rain date anyway. You know, we might just do it in the rain or just cancel it altogether.
So you want the board to approve it without a rain date?
Please.
I'll cross it out.
Any other questions?
No, I move approval as modified.
Could we just, I think maybe the website might have been incorrect, and I just want to make sure we give the right website.
Right.
I think it's the .org or .com pieces.
It's .org, Falmouth
I think
Housing,
it's .corp, right?
no.
I don't know this, I'm
Yeah.
just looking at them. I don't actually, I'm just looking at
What did I
them.
say? Falmouth Housing it's Falmouth Housing Corp .org
Yeah.
/bike ride.
Just so that people can
Sign
make
up.
sure they sign up, and,
You know how all these
I know.
websites
Too many
get
choices.
crazy.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Terrific.
much.
Best of
Appreciate
luck.
it.
Sam, is yours very quick, because we do have a hearing at 7:30?
Thank you.
You had a
Yes, well-
question on the drum circle.
Yes, it has to do with the fact that this could be a very loud event, and we've had similar complaints from neighbors, and I'm just a little concerned that, we're inviting loud conflict at the band shell where the harbor tends to propagate.
Okay, so let's hold that. We'll
Yeah.
hold that. Is there someone here for that event? Okay, so no one is here. It starts on the 22nd, so let's hold that. We can discuss
Madam
it.
Chair, if I could just offer very briefly that
Sure.
Joe Olenek, the Recreation Director, is familiar with the event. It's not amplified. I don't know how loud it is, but he said that they've been a terrific group to work with. But I can't speak directly to exactly how loud it is.
And it is at the band shell, correct?
Yes.
Where we have other,
Well, I understand.
yeah.
At noon to 1:30, not later in the evening.
Yeah, well.
Does
okay,
that
okay.
satisfy you?
I'm fine with it.
Is there a motion?
I move approval.
No, I see your point. I guess my concern is just that it's noon to 1:30. Seems like a time that wouldn't be that much of an interference
Well,
noise-wise.
as long as there's some consideration for neighbors, because obviously a drum circle could be really loud and could be that kind of a rhythmic irritation, if you will.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Point well taken. Okay, we're going to move ahead for our 7:30 hearing. I'm going to read the public hearing notice. Falmouth Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing under Section 240-77 Wetland Regulations of the zoning bylaws of the town of Falmouth on Monday, August 14, 2017, at 7:30 PM in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on the application of Roderick and Mary Lynn Kamar for permission to construct and maintain a private residential 4-foot by 4-foot platform with a 4-foot by 121.1-foot fixed pier and 6-foot by 15-foot fixed T system in and over the waters of Green Pond, a tidal embayment on the property located at 164 Acapesket Road, East Falmouth. Interested parties may review the file of this hearing at the Selectmen's office per order of the Board of Selectmen. Publication dates Friday, July 28, 2017, and Friday, August 4, 2017, in the Falmouth Enterprise, as well as a copy to abutters. Mr. Clower.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Kevin Clower, and I'm an attorney with Ahmet Clower Law Firm here in Falmouth. I'm here tonight on behalf of Roderick and Marilyn Kumar, the owners of 164 Acapesket Road, and the applicants in this matter. They have applied to you this evening for a special permit, as you've noted, under Section 240-77 of the Falmouth zoning bylaw. This property, 165 Pescott Road, is located on a lot of approximately 35,395 square feet. It's located on the shores of Green Pond and has approximately 115 feet of frontage along the water's edge. As was noted in the application, Green Pond is a tidal coastal embayment which flows into Vineyard Sound. The applicant is seeking a special permit for permission to install a dock, the dimensions of which you just reviewed. This is for the docking of one boat and has already been approved by the Conservation Commission. Anticipating some questions from the board, there was a shellfish study completed. The study did not, found that the shellfish did not exceed any of the limits and met with approval by both the harbor master, the shellfish warden, and the Conservation Commission. This proposal is very much in line with the existing conditions in the area and has no impact on the general welfare of the town. I think that's most of the highlights of the application. I'd be happy to address any questions the board may have at this time.
Any questions?
It's gone through the whole process, and it seems like it makes sense to me.
There are other similar piers in the neighborhood, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Of the 10 nearby properties, 7 have docks in very similar natures.
And the only thing I found a little bit extraordinary is the length of the dock, but you need that to be able to get into navigable waters.
That's correct, and it's
you're not
also
going-
less than 100 feet from the mean high water, and the standard in wetlands regulations is 100 feet of length from the mean high water mark. And it's
what
only about
percent-
91 feet from there.
The one thing I couldn't see on the map we had is, what percentage does that put it out across the water?
Mental math has never been my strong suit. I believe 4/5 of the dock is across water's edge.
I mean, to cut off the passageway. They can't.
I don't believe it's going to impact the navigable waters any more than any of the surrounding
They're not
docks will.
supposed to go out more than, I think, 15% of the entitled way across. I don't think it comes anywhere near that.
No. I was told there'd be no math.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
I move opposed, except if anyone wants to speak in favor or opposed.
Oh, sorry, I'm working. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor of this dock request? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak against this dock request?
I move that we close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Unanimous. Discussion.
I would move approval.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
All
you very
set.
much.
Thank you.
A little early on the 7:45 hearing. We'll go to,
Sign variances?
yeah, that's a good idea. We can find. There are 2 sign variance requests, numbers 5 and 6 under business. The first one is an on-premises promotional sign at Holiday Inn, 291 Jones Road. Is the proponent here? Does anyone from the board have any questions on that sign request?
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Second sign request is an on-premises promotional sign for Eastern Bank at 815 Main Street. Is there anyone here from Eastern? Any questions from the board on that sign request? Is there a motion?
I move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, I'm trying to look at something that might be short.
Good minutes, I guess.
Sure. Let's do number 7. Mr. Johnson-Staub, do you want to tee up the Barnstable County Community Survey issue? for the board?
We did have a couple of slides on that,
It's going to take some time.
which might take 30 seconds to get the
Make the minutes
projector
make
warmed
more
up.
sense.
All right.
Unless you want to do it without.
No, we'll go to the minutes. We'll do the minutes of meetings for July 24, 2017.
If I may, add
Sure.
a recommended change, and that's on page 2. Oh, I guess it's the third paragraph up. The last sentence says, unless you are in zone with sewers, it will cost a lot of money, and that has not been the intent of the accessory bylaw. It was to allow people with extra space to, and I would say, house a separate entity, not create a separate entity. House instead of create is what I would recommend as a
All right.
correction.
Do you want to make a motion with that addition?
Certainly, I move that we approve the minutes of Monday, July 24th, 2017, as edited.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're going to skip the executive session meetings, so that is all set.
We can do the 24th of,
Pardon?
we can use the open meeting on July 24th. That's another,
We just did that.
No, we had
no, we did,
the joint. I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm
it
still
was a
looking
joint
at
meeting.
here. All right, then let's go with that.
So these are the open session, excuse me, minutes for July 24th, 2017.
Is there any change on that?
Well, just the one question about the affordable unit that I made a motion that we would purchase.
What
It's on
paragraph?
page 2,
Yeah, page 2.
under summary of actions,
The middle of the page.
the bolded motion part.
Yep.
And so, I don't recall the dollar amount
That
being,
was. I remember Mr. Johnson Staub actually read the exact amount out. because-
okay, and then we added that?
Yes.
Because I didn't have the dollar amount.
No, and then that's
He
why
helped
that
me with
motion
that.
just kind of kept going a
Okay.
little bit until we got that exact. But he
Okay,
did read the
and-
exact number out.
And then, does that possibly cause us any restricted
In other words,
capabilities in the purchase? If we find out there's a
Well, it's-
dollar?
Yes, but it can be cured with a future vote.
I think we had to just, my understanding is we had to have the maximum amount, correct? That's where that
Correct,
number
maximum.
came from?
Yes, but again, we did secure an extension from the owner, so there is an opportunity for a new vote and a new dollar amount if that is the board's pleasure.
Okay, good, thank you.
In some ways, the motion being,
Well,
using the
page
word
three.
pursue kept us safe as opposed to actually do it.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
So with that, Sam?
Page 3, on the third paragraph, not to put words into Megan's mouth, but it says Health and Human Services is looking to collaborate with the Falmouth Service Center, and it should be together we can.
No, actually, it is We Can.
It is we can?
It's a separate, We Can is a separate organization that works out of the Falmouth Service Center.
Oh, how about that? Did
I know.
stand corrected? With that, I'll approve the minutes of July 24th as edited.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
And that's it for the minutes.
For now, I guess.
All right, so we'll now get ready for the 7:45 hearing. Going to read the notice. This is a liquor license hearing. Notice is given under Chapter 138 of the General Laws as amended that Infinite Dynamic, doing business as Bear and Boots Gastropub, has applied for an alteration of premises of an all-alcohol common victualler license located at 285 Main Street, Falmouth. The alteration request is for the addition of a new patio located at the rear of the building and 20 additional seats. A hearing will be held in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Falmouth Town Hall, on Monday, August 14, 2017, at 7:45 PM on the above application. This is by the Licensing Board, which is the Board of Selectmen. The publication date is August 4, 2017. Are the applicants here? Hi, welcome. Good evening. Can you tell us about this request?
We have a rear parking area, and we do have wheelchair access back there. We were just going to build 2 structures to sort of block off the area and put some tables and chairs, flowers. We have a garden back there currently, and put some lighting and offer our dinner service out there as well. We do have dinner service up front as well, and that's part of the patio as well in this application. The drawing should have that on there.
A question on the seating. The 20 additional seats that are being requested this evening, are they within the number of the license that you operate under?
No, so we're not seating anyone back there right now. We're looking to change the license to allow us to seat people back there.
So currently, you sit maximum to the level of your permit in your restaurant. Right now, it's maximum.
It is, yes,
And this would be 20 seats in addition to that.
that's correct, yes.
Megan?
I just have a question about where, sort of the stuff that's there now, so the dumpster and those items, what do you have? I know right after that is that structure that's there, so where will the dumpster go?
The dumpster is currently against the building that's behind us.
Yep.
And there's a pathway that's left open for wheelchair access between the dumpster and the garden area. They could also go through the garden area. And then the garden would start from there. And we're putting up, the partition is going to have lattice work that's sort of crisscross, so you can't really see what the dumpster and whatnot.
Okay.
And we're hoping to get some growth in between the lattice work as well to further block the view.
Okay. It just seems a little bit, might be a little bit tight, but maybe I haven't, just in
No,
terms of the dumpster being close to it, but you feel like there's enough room that it wouldn't
Definitely.
impact the customer's
Yeah,
experience?
before we put the garden in there, we'd fit 4 or 5 cars back there.
Okay.
It's a pretty decent sized space.
Okay.
And the Shoreway Inn has been nice enough to allow us to park there. So we don't need the parking spaces anymore, so we decided to make it useful.
Doug?
If you would just restate that, so the parking spaces you're losing, you're going to be able to move the cars to?
Yeah, if parking is not an issue for us, if the Shoreway ever does decide not to let us park there, we would just park, in town lots and whatnot.
Well, this is where I was thrilled to hear you say you had a solution that was not going to be the town lots, because the
Well,
town lots and the street are really crowded right now, and if we're losing some more spots.
It hasn't been a problem. The Shoreway's been very nice
Great.
in allowing us to park there. We've had no issues with, them.
And this would certainly be seasonal parking,
Yes.
seasonal seating.
Yes,
Yeah, it's-
definitely.
The one thing I was unclear of is, in the map you gave us, it doesn't have the doorways that you have to get to there.
Okay, there are 2 doors into the building from the rear.
Okay.
Into or out of. And then there's an exit or entrance on the side of the road from the garden, and there's an entrance exit next to the ramp as well.
And
So
will
there's
those
2
be
exits.
roped off or something to keep your customers in your seating area?
Well, I wouldn't want to rope it off just because I think the fire department might
Right.
have a problem with that, but all alcohol and whatnot will be still stored within the building, so there won't be anything back there for people to run in and steal or anything.
Okay.
Any more? Doug?
No, I think it looks good to me. They got approval from the fire department, so.
I'm sorry, I just have one other quick question. So it's hard for me to just visualize it, but that actual, I know that that's where your ramp, your wheelchair ramp is, but that patio, you're anticipating that would be wheelchair accessible as well?
Yes.
So it's just going to be a flat, there
Yep.
won't be any lip for people to get into? Okay.
Nope.
Great.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone here who would like to speak against this request?
Move to
Hearing
close the
none?
hearing?
Second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Discussion with the board?
I would move approval of this alteration premises.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Good luck.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a report from the Community Preservation Committee. The board, you might have appreciated, is taking committee reports. We're trying to get all of our committees in. This will be the CPC. Virginia Carmichael, welcome.
Why don't I hear it warming up? There it goes. Yeah.
supposed to move without. That first slide showed that Falmouth community preservation funds are used all over Falmouth. That was a distribution map. Thank you for inviting us to give this presentation. We've been wanting to do this for a couple of years. My experience and others' experience in giving this presentation is that afterwards people say, I had no idea. So we were thinking maybe even you had no idea. We prepared this presentation for civic and other groups, and we've shown it during the past 2 years. This is not a formal CPC report. It's my presentation and my comments drawn from my experience as a member and a chair of the committee. I'd like to kind of blitz you with photos for a while, just to give you a visual impression of how CP fund money has improved the character and the vitality of Falmouth. Let's see if this works. That first one was Shiverick's Pond, which is being studied to increase the recreational value of that pond. And on the other side was Haddad Parcel, which is at the end of Minot Beach and provides protection. It's open space, 300 committees started it. It provides protection for the beach. This is Oak Grove Cemetery, the school administration building, historic preservation. So the first was open space. This is historic preservation. This is housing. This is Notanico. This is Schoolhouse Green across from the new tire place on T-Ticket Park. And that's Notanico Woods on Woodside Road. The fourth area that CP funds may be used for is recreation. This is irrigation system rehabilitation at the golf course. And that is Morse Pond Public School Playground Rehabilitation. Now what I want to do is just, as I said, blitz you through some pictures. I'm not going to make a lot of comments. This is open space. This is the Bartolome parcel on Sandwich Road overlooking the Coonamessett River with accessible trails. This is the Kelly Woodland, another initiation by the 300 Committee, which the outlined in red parcel joins Beebe Woods with Flume Pond all the way to Buzzards Bay. So it creates a continuous hiking trail all that way across. This is Phragmites before removal at Oyster Pond, just completely choking out the pond. This is after the removal, which is extremely tedious and backbreaking work and never stops. It goes on all the time. Little Pond Conservation Area, which is part of the parcel that was divided for community housing and a park. And this is the green outline, shows you the park area. This shows you the park plan with trails, picnic areas, educational signage, and a kayak. My hope is someday a kayak launching pad. This is Shallow Pond Woodlands in the autumn, and this is a map showing how Shallow Pond Woodlands joins again, which the 300 Committee is fabulous at doing, joins a number of parcels, the Brivogel parcel and the Walden Fender parcel. So all of that is now continuously protected open space, and it's crucial watershed land for the town of Falmouth. In the past, because open space is considered that water, estuaries, wetlands, ponds are considered open space, the CPC here has recommended and town meeting has agreed to appropriate funding for studies, shellfish and water quality studies of our estuaries and our ponds. So this is just an example of a shellfish and water quality study of Green Pond, which apparently was never turned into a management plan, but that was the purpose. The funding was given on the basis that it would be the basis of a management plan. This is a Massachusetts Estuaries project. The state requires that towns establish baseline for water quality, chemicals and toxics, and this the CPC recommended funding for about 5 of these studies, and this is just an example of one of them at Wild Harbor. And this is the newly planned Coonamessett Heritage Trail Greenway, which will go from the origin to almost to Great Pond. Housing. The Falmouth Housing Authority has for 3 years administered a program to provide one-time rental assistance to families who are living in affordable units who are having a crisis, loss of job, critical illness, in just one time. And they helped 130 families over 2 years stay in their homes with a 99% rate of success. The Falmouth Housing Authority also administers 12 affordable homes that were given to Falmouth by the state, by the Department of Housing and Community Development. And those are affordable homes, and that they are administered by the Housing Authority. This is an example of one of those homes. Habitat has, the CPC has recommended a number of projects to town meeting for Habitat because they have such a strong success record in every way. And this is on Sam Turner Road, 2 duplexes. This is another Habitat project on Glenwood Avenue, 2 duplexes, right near town, right there. This is Falmouth Housing Corp. They do this, they've done this quite a bit. Buy houses, rehab, deed restrict them for affordability, and then sell them. And they're deed restricted for affordability in perpetuity. Falmouth Housing Trust, same thing entirely. 2 affordable homes on St. Mark's Road, which was donated, the land was donated by the town. Oddfellows Hall, the Community Preservation Act encourages adaptive reuse, and this is a perfect example of adaptive reuse. The Falmouth Housing Trust received this property from the town and was allowed to convert it into 4 very contemporary affordable apartments. That's the before, that's the after. They are visitable apartments. This is the TRI, the Resource Incorporated, who adapted this house into 3 affordable apartments with the use of CP funds. This is a mansion that was built, that was started on Woods Hole Road, and I think it was foreclosed or abandoned or something. But the Falmouth Housing Corporation, Bob Murray's last wish on his deathbed, apparently he had everyone shake his hand and agree that they would turn this into affordable housing. So it was a promise that was carried out, and here is the result. And it's beautiful. It's on Woods Hole Road, and it's truly lovely. 11 affordable apartments. Historic preservation. This is the old former poorhouse, which I learned recently was a pub on Sandwich Road originally, and it's now the Edward Marks Jr. office building. The historical portion of the library was restored with CP funds. The granite is deteriorating on the Old Town Dock in West Falmouth Harbor, and CP funds, since that's historic pink granite, CP funds were able to pay for redoing that, and it's a beautiful result. This is Davis House in Woods Hole, which is the headquarters of WCAI. That house was completely restored with CP funds, about $275,000 inside and out. And we obtain preservation restrictions from when people receive CP funds. They grant the town a preservation restriction, ensuring that that will always be protected as a historic property. This is Conant House, one of the properties owned by the Falmouth Historical Society, and CP funds paid for the restoration of the exterior of that Conant House, built in 1786 or something like that. To me, this is one of the most amazing things. All of the library's historical documents were not only digitized, but they're searchable, so you can put your own name in and find every reference to you and your family that ever appeared in any historical documents of this town. It's online at the library website. CP funds paid for the restoration of the exterior and the cupola of the Falmouth Lawrence Academy, which is the home of the Chamber of Commerce. Knobska Lighthouse has a 3-phase restoration program. They intend to ask for CP funds for each part of that, but they're raising additional funds, and they've received funds for the first phase of that restoration. The Village Green Fence. The CP fund supported the restoration of that using the original new, original black locust wood to rebuild and replace that entire fence in a historically appropriate manner. Woods Hole Public Library and the West Falmouth Public Library have received several grants for restoration, inside and out. And this is the World War I Memorial in front of the main library. McCoy Congregational Church, interior and exterior with CP funds. Highfield Hall Ice House, but CP funds have supported a number of restoration improvements in Highfield Hall, in the house itself. The golf course, and I've already heard people talking that people who didn't even know I had anything to do with the CP fund who said the golf course is a lot better now. So that's good to hear. This is Goodwill Park Playground Rehabilitation. Morse Pond School Playground Rehabilitation. This is my favorite. This is East Falmouth Elementary School Playground Rehabilitation with the kids thanking us. Sandwich Road Fields, that was a project that has gone on for 10 years, and the CP Fund has contributed to each phase of that project from the very beginning all the way to the completion. So it's got lacrosse and football fields, basketball court, and it has, it's accessible. It has something else I've forgotten right now, but it's
Baseball.
Baseball, thank you. Bike rack installations all over town. That's the Bikeways Committee, and they took on a huge project with the help of the Department of Public Works to install bike racks all over the town. Just recently, the CP Fund paid for part of an athletic fields demand use study, which many of you may have read about in the newspaper. It showed terrible overuse of our fields, and it recommended ways to remedy that. Shining Sea Bikeway restoration. By granting the funds for the PS&Is for this, that the town was able to receive several $100,000 from a state environmental grant to restore the portion of the bikeway from Woods Hole to Locust Street. And that'll go on and on and on. Okay, so any questions about that? This is a quick look at the distribution of the funds. We're still paying off land bank debt. That was the deal we made when we switched. 55% of all the funds have gone into paying back the land bank debt, and it will be completely paid in 2020. And then you can see the distribution. The largest amount has gone to community housing, but that doesn't, what that actually reflects is that a large amount of funds have been given to the Falmouth Affordable Housing Fund. And then the second one is historic preservation, then open space, but the land bank is open space also. So the mustard color is additional open space the CP Fund has supported. And the last is, I said that wrong, didn't I? Wait, open space?
You got it right.
Okay,
No,
okay.
those recreation.
Now, before we go to the next slide, I just want to give you some basic points about this. Falmouth became a community preservation town in 2004 when it voted to change its 3% Cape Cod Land Bank surcharge, 3%, to a community preservation surcharge. And under the Community Preservation Act, each year the state matches the local revenue. It started at 100% match, but because so many towns have joined, the match has gone down to 18%, and there's a big lobby every year to try to get the state to commit more funds to that match because it's made so much difference in towns. There are currently 173 CPA towns. The CPA allows the funds to support, as I've told you, community housing, historic preservation, recreation, in addition to open space. So that's what the town voted to do when it voted to switch from land bank to community preservation. It voted to add the ability to support community housing, recreation, and historic preservation. The legislature passed this law. The intention of this law was to provide funds to towns for community enhancements not supported by their operating and capital budgets. That is, CP funds may not be used to substitute for what should be ordinary town expenditures. They're meant to preserve and enhance the character and vitality of a community above and beyond what ordinary municipal budgeting allows. Thus, a separate committee, the CPC, recommends project funding to town meeting after project review, and if town meeting approves, the funds are appropriated. And to date, town meeting has approved all but one project, and we began in 2005. This is a revenue chart which shows some really good news, and the next one will too. The top line is local revenue, the 3% surcharge. The blue line is the state match. You see it started out at 100% and now it's gone down to 18%. But the gold line is our repayment of land bank debt, and look at when it disappears. 2020, we will have no more land bank debt to repay. And that creates a huge amount of discretionary cash that will be available in the CP fund for use for those 4 areas. I know you can't see this, but I'm just going to, they have a printed out page. And also I've provided a whole bunch of printed out pages back here. I don't know where they went. Just take my word for it. In 2019, the discretionary cash, after all those statutory allocations have been made, after land bank debt's been paid, everything's been done, amount to $750,000. But the committee voted to go ahead and pay off put aside money to pay off land bank debt from 2020 to 2035. And we've been doing that conscientiously. So in 2021, that discretionary cash jumps from $750,000 to $2.5 million. And it goes up each year in our projections with Jennifer's help from 2021 through 2035, which is as far as we've gone with our projections. But that's a tremendous amount of money, and that's why we want so much to see the fund operating efficiently and creatively and constructively for Falmouth. If, in 2020, however, if a successful petition is brought, the town can vote to opt out of CPA entirely, and it would just all come to an end. And that's one reason the CPC voted to put aside the money now to pay back land bank debt, so the town wouldn't be burdened with that debt if it voted to opt out of the CP fund. I want to remind you that this is not a formal committee report. My comments tonight are the kinds of comments I make when I make this presentation to civic groups, and these requests for policy directives from you are based on my experience as chair for 2 years and a member for 4 years. And I think they're pretty straightforward. We need 5 directives from you to help us move forward, and especially as we move into this period of having such an enormous amount of funding to contribute to Falmouth. Ensure town management and officials understand CP Fund operates under the CPA statute and its governing town committee, the CPC. It is a little different from other town committees. It's governed by its own statute. Ensure that town management and officials work with, assist, and support CP Fund staff and CPC in a positive and constructive way. There's a great possibility here for a creative collaboration, and it hasn't been fully realized, and it would be just a powerful thing if it could be. Ensure that town management and officials understand that Massachusetts Department of Revenue opinions on CPA eligibility are advisory only and cannot be enforced. And they also advise that the ultimate authority on eligibility decisions under the CPA is the local town council. These are local funds. They want local decisions to be made.
And by that, Virginia, you mean the Board of Selectmen, not the attorney?
No, they actually specify the attorney as the person.
So council, then?
Town council,
Thank you.
That is the next recommendation. Ensure that only town council formally resolve with due process questions of CPA eligibility, taking into account all relevant matters, including Falmouth public good. Because there are some very clear instances when following an advisory opinion from the Massachusetts Department of Revenue works strongly against Falmouth public interest. So town council needs to weigh all those factors in making a decision about eligibility. The committee doesn't always have questions about eligibility. It's often very clear cut. But as all laws are, there are gray areas and areas of uncertainty, and MADOR makes it very clear in writing that town council is the ultimate authority on eligibility. And given the jump in the amount of discretionary funds to $2.5 million in 2020 and more each year after that, before that time, hold one or more joint long-range planning sessions for the CPC, the BOS, and the Planning Board. That would be so powerful if you could bring the CPS into that, CPC. We're supposed to be independent, but that doesn't mean we can't participate in visioning the future of the town. And that would shape decisions, inevitably. Okay, any questions from Selectmen?
Questions from the board?
Oh, that was
Thank you.
very helpful, thanks.
Yeah, it's
In
great.
view of
Thank
the
you.
time, we're going to thank you for that, and we will set up the joint meeting. I think that's a terrific suggestion.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I think this is the appropriate time.
Very much, thank you. We next have a presentation on the Andrews Farm Working Group. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, right up to the podium.
Do you have any slides in there already? I sent them to Diana.
To the rescue.
You know, calling folks by name. This is our master tech guru here.
Ah.
There we go.
Well, that'll be helpful.
Great.
That's it.
Great, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. On behalf of the Andrews Farm Working Group, we would like to thank the Board of Selectmen and the town manager for this opportunity to update you on our work. I would ask that if there are any questions that they get held to the end so I can breeze through this unless there is something that really you want clarification on.
Sure.
Would you want to introduce yourself, just so?
Stan Ingram, I am on the Andrews Farm Working Group and also the chair of the Falmouth Agricultural Commission.
Thank you.
Soon after it was publicly announced that Andrews Farm had gone on the market, the Falmouth Agricultural Commission placed the sale of the farm on our agenda. We were joined in February at our regular monthly meeting by members of the Falmouth Preservation Alliance and the 300 Committee. It was clear that everyone in that room felt that having Andrews Farm become anything other than a working farm producing fresh fruits and vegetables would be really a loss to the town. And we also felt that with the expertise and enthusiasm of the groups represented and with a little help from our friends, and it turned out to be more than just a little help, that we could not only purchase the farm for the town, but we could also come up with a way to keep the farm actively farmed and managed. Our working group does have 4 active farmers in the group, so we do have a little bit of experience in running a farm, and the group has a huge pool of organizational talent. Oops, what did I hit? What am I supposed to hit? Well, anyways, so we formed a working group after that meeting, and we have been meeting every Tuesday night just about since then. And I just wanted to take this time to add that I have heard it said more than once, and I have said it myself, that the working group is amazing. The people, the individuals that make it up have really made it quite fun to be a part of. And I am deeply appreciative of all the work they've done and the people in the group. So the selectmen have the slides on have the PowerPoint slides. So anyways, the 300 committee was, okay, so.
I'll not stand, just tell me next slide.
Okay, so this is a quote that appeared the Falmouth Historical Society honoring Tony and Marina Andrews with a Heritage Award in 2004. Mrs. and Mrs. Andrews have created a Falmouth institution with their farm. The family has helped others keep a connection with the soil in an age where all too many have no idea where food comes from. And the working group feels that that should certainly continue. The 300 committee was nice enough to take on the job of raising the funds for the farm, which allowed the rest of us in the working group to brainstorm on where we were going to go with the farm, what could be a possible management structure, and how is this farm going to go from the 90 years that has been in operation into the future. Next farm. Yep. So this is a slide of the farm for those who are not familiar. In blue is the active agricultural use. 18.78 acres is actively being farmed right now. The other pork chop piece, 17.9 acres, has some farmland that's been used in some woods, and other is a place there that used to, at one time, was like a tree farm, but it's been overgrown. And the green parcels are ones that are being purchased by the 300 committee for the Coonamessett Greenway, which was mentioned earlier this evening. So the first thing, one of the first things we did, next slide please, was to develop a website and a Facebook page. And we put out a question. We wanted to get some input from the public on what they felt about the farm, what they would like to see happen to the farm in the future. So we had this, this was our question. Next slide. So these were some of the questions that we did ask. If the farm were to become town-owned, what would you like to see happen there? Community access to the working fields scored pretty high. Next. Pick your own crops grown on the farm, which is what they do some of now. Again, very high. Next. And what varieties of pick your own crops. So this slide is set up so the bigger the typeset is, the more responses that we got. So people had no shortage of input on what should be grown. Next slide. And some part of the farm used as an incubator farm, a place where aspiring farmers can get initial experience running their own operation. This is, there's a very successful example of this in the Intervale up in outside of Burlington, Vermont. There are a lot of young farmers who would like to get their start in farming, but they need to have something, what is the word I'm looking for? some foundation, if they wanted to go to a bank and ask for a loan, the bank is going to ask them, so show me what you've done. So an incubator farm allows them a couple of years to get a business plan in place, so when they go to the bank, they do have something in paper. So that was good. Some part of the farm use, okay, next slide. Have the farm stand remain in operation. There's an active farm stand there now. 82% of our respondents thought that was a good idea to keep going. Next slide. Have a section for community garden plots. Again, a lot of people like that, so on the scale, I didn't mention this before, but 0 is no thank you, and then 3 is that would be a great use of the farm. Next slide. Have extended season farming in greenhouses. At this point in time, there are no greenhouse structures at the farm, but between 2 and 3, almost 90% of the people thought that that would be a good idea, good thing to have at the farm. Next slide. And would like to have the special events to continue. And again, size of the font is the events that they liked. But certainly lots of input across the board. And survey demographics, East Falmouth was the largest, largest respondent by town section, 83% full-time residents. This survey was done early in the spring, so we don't have a lot of our summer residents probably represented. And then the last one, the age range, this is a farm that a lot of people across the age spectrum are interested in. Next. The next thing, so we took that, and the next thing we did is we did a visioning charrette. And for those who are not familiar with a charrette, it's a fancy word for a brainstorming session. And we held it on June 11th, Gus Canty Rec Center. And the way that we set it up is we had 6 topic areas, and each one of those we had land use, management, community, help me out with this one, community
interaction and partnerships.
Yep. There we go, local use, farming practices. And so at each one of the tables, we had a piece of butcher paper up there, and people could just say something, and the person at the table would write it down. And we did 2 of these sessions where people could go to different groups and put their input. And everyone was giving 5 smiley faces, little stickers, and 1 silver star. And at the end, what we did is everyone got to walk around the room, look at all the different things that were listed, and they used their little smiley face and put it by the ones that sort of spoke to them. And the star was the one that they saved for the one thing that they thought this really has to happen at the farm. And so you can see under this one, greenhouses growing high-value crop. One of the things that was interesting, which was different between the survey and the charrette, was at the charrette, slaughtering animals for meat and poultry was high on the list, whereas in the survey, hardly anybody picked that one. So that's it. Okay, next slide. This was education, again, adult volunteers working with children's gardens, sustainability. These were all things that people, year-round interactive farm curriculum, got 4 smiley faces. Next, this was management structure. in non-farming activities and recreation. Keep commercial farming that can coexist with community farming. That's this one over here, got a number of smiley faces and a star. Next slide. And food from the farm, cows, raw milk, dairy products, something that's not there now. Pick your own blueberries, raspberries, blackberry, mulberry. Bees and honey, which is another thing that's not there now. And animals for meat. We must have had a lot of meat eaters come to the shred. Next slide. In the working group, when we've gone around and talked about things that we would like to see at the farm, we used some of these as our guiding sort of principles. The survey we looked at, the charrette we looked at, and the agricultural significance. Now, Andrews Farm, even though we are Falmouth and we sit on a sand spit, the farm itself has some of the best agricultural soils as defined by the USDA. And it's also the last large working farm in Falmouth. It has cultural significance and historical significance because it was started by immigrants. It just has that sort of down home feel to it. Next slide. This is a graphic that shows Falmouth agricultural lands over time, and the blue is our acres in 1800, and then down to 2000, where it starts to go up. So we have lost oodles of farmland over that time. And the red line on this cranberry bog. So cranberry bog land has been kind of level. So one of the, had an Excel spreadsheet. We were looking at numbers, and Tom Stone from the 300 committee said, yeah, you can't use those numbers because, you know, they may not be really accurate. But using those numbers, Andrews Farm represents about a quarter of the cultivated land in town, according to that chart. So losing that farm would be a big hit for us. Next slide. So we've also talked about, okay, economic sustainability. How right now it's being managed by Jeff Andrews, son of Tony, but he seems to want to retire at some point soon. So how do we keep it going? How do we keep it viable? So we've talked about four-season farming with land leasing, on-site affordable housing for farmers, interns, farm stand, pick your own, CSA, community-supported agriculture. For those who aren't familiar with that, that's a program where people buy shares in a harvest up front, beginning of the season, allows the farmer to get the initial capital when there's nothing coming in, and the farmer provides weekly or bi-weekly or whatever they set it up, package of produce to those.
Quick request here. Just wondering, it's a huge project, a lot of information. This is our first informational session, and we have a lot of folks with a lot of agenda items going forward. So I'm wondering if you can kind of give us your main points in the next 5 minutes of what you'd like us to know at this point. And I apologize for that, but we will have more opportunities because this is a ton of work.
We'll go next slide then. All right, so again, so this is any
good timing
information, any more information, you can get to friendsofandrewfarm@gmail.com. Next slide. So this is a quote that Marina had to my great-great-grandchild. I do hope I have many. I bequeath you this beautiful town with its lush fields, beautiful trees, lovely streams and waterways, and I hope 2076 will find it so. And this is in a time capsule. Let's see. So, yes, there are three things that came up at the CPC meeting that I wanted to mention. One was the one abstaining vote was because there was no active or couldn't have active recreation at the farm, and I didn't think of it at the time, but gardening is pretty active recreation, at least for me it is, and that's not the only thing. The farm at Coonamessett Farm, we have a cyclocross, we have yoga, so there's lots of things. I think they're not mutually exclusive. We've talked about housing. The two farmhouses that exist on the property, they would be hugely beneficial to any farmer or farm enterprise that sets up there. And the third thing that I've heard too many times is what happens if the farm fails? Well, my reaction to that is the farm is not going to fail. The working group has been working really hard to come up with scenarios to keep the farm going. We'd be happy to share that with you at some point. And just, we have no intention of letting that plow in this town seal in back of you rust.
Terrific.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Very well done. Thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is the status update on Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station by Ray Jack, DPW Director. And I just want to preface this by saying that on behalf of the board, I made a request for this presentation. It ended up causing a delay in the process that's actually going on at Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station. So on the board, on behalf of the board, just want to thank you very much for giving the board the opportunity to ask a couple of questions and to just understand what is coming before the Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station. If there are any questions from anyone after the presentation, I'm going to limit it to about 5 minutes, given all the rest of the items on the agenda total. So just know that up front. Mr. Jack, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you all, and good evening. And my presentation is short, since you do have a very heavy schedule. I think there's maybe only 8 slides.
Okay.
And only a few items to concentrate on. So anyway, this is an update on the proposed contract, specifically with Cavosa Corporation for the interim use of the Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station, which is located on a 19-acre site up on the base. An RFP had gone out earlier in the year. There were 3 respondents to the RFP. One was Saltine Warrior, which was a salt company. One was Recycling Solutions Incorporated, and the third one was Cavosa Incorporated. And of the 3, Cavosa had the most favorable proposal as well as the most favorable cost analysis. And I do have the copy of the cost analysis in here. So these are some of the key considerations for the contract that is currently being decided upon. It's a 5-year term. It would end on December 31st of 2022. There is a built-in 3-year extension possible that is entirely at the sole discretion of the Board of Managers, so there is no automatic entitlement to that. If that were to occur, we'd take it out to the year 2025 as far as the contract goes. Cavosa is responsible for all repairs and/or upgrades to the facility, with the exception of any roof repairs or fire sprinkler repairs, because they are a fundamental part of the building structure itself. Further on that, if he were to add anything out there that was capable of being removed, so similar to your house where they have small things outside, put in a fire pit or something like that, they may be able to take that with them when they leave. If they build something that is permanent, then it has to stay with the facility and becomes the property of the facility. One of the other things that I would point out to the board as well, no one actually owns the facility, if you will. So it is on base property. It was built by the Upper Cape Towns for the Upper Cape Towns. So it is not something as far as ownership goes. They're not allowed to use fuel on the site for fueling any of their vehicles, nor store fuel on the site. They're going to start out with MSW, which is municipal solid waste, then possibly go to C&D, which is construction and demolition debris, and possible recycling operations during the term of the contract. The facility is currently permitted for MSW, which is routinely known as trash, and C&D, the construction and demolition debris, comes in usually in carts and containers, and then it has to be sorted before it can be sent to a destination point for processing. For all of these operations, Cavosa is proposing to use the rail, so the vehicles come in by truck, but the materials go out by rail. The CDL is the commercial driver's license test site. Is run by the state police up there, and it has been for years at that facility, so that's where they do the training and testing for commercially licensed vehicle operators, namely truck drivers. So that would remain operational even while his operation is there, and that was an important consideration for the state police. There were a number of different insurance coverages imposed. We have injury and property liability. So injury liability is $1 million a person, or $5 million in the aggregate. Property liability is $2 million, or $5 million in the aggregate. The environmental liability is on a per occurrence basis because you can't specify what it's going to be. It could be whatever environmental condition may occur or may exist. But the important point on this coverage here, it has to extend for 3 years beyond the cessation of operations. All right? So it's a pretty broad-based coverage, if you will. The BOM is the Board of Managers for the Upper Cape Transfer Station are indemnified under these policies, and each of the respective towns are also indemnified. There's a performance bond and liquidated damages, and they're a little bit different. The performance bond on this is $200,000, and it's being identified as a penal sum, so it's kind of punitive, if you will, if it were to be applied. It's a little bit different for liquidated damages. That's a not to exceed value of $78,000, and I'll show you where that $78,000 number came in a minute. Now, to fully understand these two types of bonds and damage claims, it's kind of like renting a home, where you have the first and last month's rent, and then you have a security deposit. So if they leave before their term, you can withhold their last month's rent. It's in some ways a form of damage. But then the security deposit is supposed to be applied to actual damages, if you will. So that's similar to what these are. The liquidated damages would be for the financial damages that would occur, meaning that if they're not operating, that means that they are not paying their bills, so to speak, to the respective towns. Their operations are proposing Monday through Saturday. Cavosa's trucks would be able to access the facility at 5. It would be 7 o'clock in the morning for all other vehicles, and proposing to close at 4. So that would be a standard day. The traffic, if they were doing trash, would be 11 to 13 vehicles a day. If it was going to be construction and demolition debris, that's 30 to 40. The 30 to 40 could be a number of different sizes. They could be containers, they could be roll-offs, what have you. The service area identified is Barnstable, Dukes, or Nantucket, otherwise known as the Cape and Islands. For termination, it can only be terminated for cause, which in this case doesn't give us any unilateral right. We have to identify a specific breach of contract if we were to terminate them for cause, or as the result of any of the government actions below. And there are 2 government actions here that we're talking about: property access and or the rail spur being eliminated. If it was property access, whether they restrict it and or terminate access with or without cause, they don't need a reason to do that by the U.S. government, state, or their agencies, because those are the entities that are intimately involved in base operations. Base operations fall under federal as well as state jurisdictions. So if they were to say, we're pulling the rug out from the transfer station operation, then there's nothing that anybody can do about that. If the rail spur were eliminated, then that would trigger a renegotiation with Cavosa. If it were necessary, logic says that the cost for the operation would probably go up, because now all truck transport would be the only available means to move materials, and that could lead to a mutual termination or a friendly termination. This was what Kavosa's proposal was. What I'll highlight here, the number's a little bit confusing, but basically for the duration of the contract has an escalating base fee value that increases each year of that contract. So if you look at year 2, that's where the $78,000 number came from. All right, and that's the first full year of actual operation. So entering the agreement now means that it's not a full year yet. So the $78,000 would presume that in the course of a year, depending on where that contract was in that particular year, there would be a prorated not to exceed $78,000 value that would be assessed against them if they terminated operations. So the base fee that they were going to be paying for all of the Upper Cape towns collectively was $78,000 in that year. Then there's a performance fee, which means $1.50 a ton for every ton that comes into the facility up to $30,000 would be an additional $45,000 they would pay. And then if it was up to $50,000, that $1.50 a ton would translate into $75,000. And then those monetary amounts are split up amongst the 4 communities. So our portion would be 25%. So in that second year operation of $78,000 a year would be $19,500 for the base amount, and possibly $11,250 for the 30,000 ton figure, or it could be more. The permitted capacity of the facility is actually 89,100 tons a year. Historically, it operated at just less than 50,000 tons. It operated in the 30 to 50,000 ton range per year, and Kavosa is proposing an operation that was going to be less than 50,000 tons a year. The purpose of the whole exercise, if you will, was to preserve the facility. It was to have an interim use during its period of inactivity, to preserve the facility as well as the rail for a possible utilization to CMAS and or other destinations. For the future for the Upper Cape towns, as I said, it is a 19-acre site on the base that was built for this purpose, and although it is not currently being used, it can reasonably expected that over the course of the next several years that there may be an opportunity to reuse the facility. Not only may be, it will probably be very likely. One of the other beneficial uses during that period of time would be salt. Getting road salt can be difficult sometimes, so that one of the opportunities here, I had indicated one of the proposers was actually going to be able to deliver salt for the Upper Cape towns. Under Kavosa's proposal, he was also expressing that he would be willing to store salt on the site for use by the Upper Cape towns. And there could be commercial benefits. Simple commercial benefit would be lumber. Basically, all the lumber that's coming in now is coming in by truck. So for lumber yards and things of that nature, it's much more cost efficient to be able to bring it in by rail. Now for Falmouth specifically, as far as an interim use and or future use for the facility, we currently have our disposal contract with the Bourne Landfill. And that's a 10-year contract. It does have a potential for a 5-year expansion, presuming that they have the airspace and or the permitting capacity at that time. So right now we're in our 3rd year. That means we have 7 years on that 10-year agreement, or pending landfill closure, if that were to happen. I shouldn't say if, when that will happen. The Bourne landfill will ultimately close. It's not a question of if, it is only a question of when. So when that happens, our disposal site goes away. So our options are going to be extremely limited, especially for municipal solid waste. That's where that's going to go. Likely, for the present time, I would say if it happened anytime soon, it would go back to CMAS. If that were the case, that's where the rail would really come into play. If that landfill closes and there is no Upper Cape Regional Transfer Station and or rail access, that means that all the waste is moving by truck. And we will incur as a community higher transport costs, which would be approximately $250,000 a year, and that's just on our curbside collection contract, because right now that trash is going to the Bourne landfill. If those trucks then have to cross the bridge, there's going to be a significant amount of downtime and additional manpower that would be necessary in order to make up all of that time, so they had to put additional trucks and crews on the road just to compensate for that one alone.
Not to mention a lot of bridge traffic.
Yes, yes. So that was really the end of the presentation, and if the board had any questions or anyone had any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Thank you.
The meeting for the Board of Managers was rescheduled to August 21st, so that's when it would be expected to vote on this.
Again, thank you for that courtesy. Didn't have to be given, it was requested and approved, and we appreciate that. Questions from the board on the presentation? Great. Any questions from the audience? Thank you, Mr. Jack, appreciate it.
Okay, Mr. Lynch.
Oh, sorry, Kevin, didn't see you on the side, come right up. And we're going to keep it to a minute a person, a total of 5.
I've been out of the base. The transfer station is a deserted wreck now. There's trees growing through it. And when I know Mr. Gallo in Bourne, near the Sagamore Bridge, has a perfectly operational transfer station. You don't have to go across the bridge to bring something down to his place. And recently, I think it was General McGurn told me that the base may put a railroad track across the base down to that transfer station. So we don't, and what the thing that I want to see is make it a bike path, because the Shining Sea Bikeway is probably the best known bike path in the United States, and I think we would be better off if we expend that bikeway for all of the people here in Cape Cod.
Thank you. Any other question or comment on Mr. Jack's presentation? Sir?
Thank you. My name is Ken Shetland, and I'm one of the directors of the Friends of the Bourne Rail Trail. First, I want to thank, I know there are a lot of people here tonight who are here to support the Bourne Rail Trail, and I want to, if you could raise your hands, and thank you all very much for coming. Really appreciate it. I think this demonstrates to the Selectmen the extent of support for the extension of the Shining Sea Bikeway. The 6.2-mile extension that's contemplated, and that was the subject of the Cape Cod Commission's study. Our point is, for some reason that we don't quite understand, we seem to have been tagged with the concept that we are agitating to remove the rail. And that is, in fact, not our position. Our position is that the Cape Cod Commission recommended continued investigation and a further feasibility study to consider all of the options to make this rail trail a possibility. And by entering into this contract for the transfer station, we are effectively taking one of the options, one of the 3 options that were identified in the initial study as the most cost-effective and fastest to accomplish. We're effectively taking it off the table. The reality.
A minute, your time is over. Is there a feeling among the board to allow another minute?
Given the strong representation, I would say yes.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, appreciate it. I will make this very short. The only people disadvantaged by a delay in the award of this contract are 2 private companies, Cavosa Disposal and Mass Coastal. And that should be balanced against the great demonstrated public interest in exploring all of the options, not just for the rail trail, but to address the concerns that have been raised by some of the people who are concerned about the possibility that the option of removing the rail would be put on the table as the best option. The military, State Department of Transportation, all of those concerns could be addressed if we delay this lease and we don't take that critical option off the table at this point.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you. Carter Hunt, Mass Development from Waquoit. I'd just like to point out that at the Selectmen's meeting in the town of Sandwich, Glenn Cannon, who did this feasibility study for the Cape Cod Commission, indicated it would be between 5 and 10 years before any work could be possibly done on this. The study hasn't even been funded by the Cape Cod Commission. It hasn't been put forward by the Cape Cod Commission to ask for money from anyone. So at this stage, delaying the transfer station makes no sense whatsoever. First of all, as you know, I came before you before, and we are in agreement that a rail with trail is fine. We're okay with that. But ripping up the trail affects both the economic value to this town, especially, as Mr. Jack has pointed out, there's a very good chance that in 2020, the Bourne landfill is going to be closed. The Mass DEP is going to say, that's enough, you're all done. that's a possibility. The other possibility is, General McGurn stood before you and talked about troop movements. One of the troop movements has been recently confirmed that they're going out to the National Training Center in California. It's an engineer company with heavy equipment. The easiest way to move them from their equipment, which is at Joint Base Cape Cod, is to move them across the rail lines. Tearing up the rail lines is not a solution to the problem that we have here. Thank you very much for your time.
Anyone like the last minute? Sir?
Can I just clarify before you speak? I think that you had mentioned 2020, which is 3 years out, and I think that is potentially a little bit early. I don't think that Mr. Jack noted necessarily. I just don't want to give the impression that we're 3 years out to the Bourne facility closing. I know there are possibilities at any time, but I just don't want that to be an image that the public gets that we're that close to the facility closing.
That's the first review by Mass DEP of that facility. And Mass DEP has not been moving forward with allowing landfills in the common.
Right. I know that they're doing some work at Bourne. I just don't want people to get into a heightened state of panic about a 3-year closure of our current dumping facility.
Thank you.
My name's Nathan Robinson. I'm with the Friends of the Bourne Rail Trail as well. I want to thank everybody for coming out, and I just want to sort of reiterate that, part of this process, we recognize that the base has needs. We recognize that there are solid waste needs. We also recognize that the federal government, the state government, and the town of Bourne has significant land holdings in the Cape Cod Canal region. So we think part of this process is actually thinking about, is there a place that might be a better location for the transfer station? Is there a way for the base's needs to be met by transporting materials over surface roads to get to a loading facility off of the Cape Main line? So we really think about this, about people coming to the table and thinking creatively about how we can open up an extremely high value piece of real estate that goes through some of the town of Bourne's most beautiful places. It goes through some of its villages. So I would encourage Mass Development to think about the development of the town of Bourne's villages, and not just these sort of pie-eyed economic development projects that might not ever come to play. So I think that that's really what we're trying to bring people to the table to think about, is that we understand the base has needs. We understand that there are solid waste needs, but how can we all come together to think about how we can address all these needs? And that's really what we're advocating for, and we've been advocating for a long time. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And for anyone who might not have heard it previously, because we've had numerous meetings at the Falmouth Board of Selectmen on this subject, I want to just make mention that Representative Vieira is sort of leading the chairs of the boards of selectmen for the affected communities, Sandwich, Bourne, Falmouth, and Mashpee, in kind of a talking, thinking group, and those are some of the ideas that have come out and that you've mentioned in terms of working together and really making this happen going forward. So thank you. We'll move on to the next agenda item. If anyone wants a few minutes to quietly head out. The next item is a discussion of the Barnstable County Community Survey. Am I wrong? I'm sorry.
Follow-up discussion on proposed.
I have a draft agenda
I know you
that's
do.
scoring me up here.
Go with this one you have here. Follow-up discussion on Trotting Park.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Follow-up discussion on proposed Trotting Park bikeway connector and potential next steps. Trotting Park, Mr. Suso?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe you had mentioned the desire to publicly acknowledge the letter received from the superintendent of schools regarding the Trotting Park connector, as I believe it was presented to her.
Yes, thank you. And wouldn't you mind summarizing or reading, whatever you prefer?
I'd be happy to read that letter if that would be desired. This is a letter from Superintendent Nancy Taylor, Falmouth Public Schools. We received it on August 4th, directed to me and asked to copy members of the board. Mr. Suso, it has come to our attention the Board of Selectmen may be considering supportive funding efforts to expand a bike path through or very near the T-Ticket School property. Over the past few years, the T-Ticket School community was informed of this proposal, but clearly stated their concerns. Limiting public access to public school property has become a standard practice for all school districts across the Commonwealth. The concept of fencing off a new bike path route also raised concerns to the history of emergency vehicles needing to access this area when responding to medical emergencies. Sincerely, Nancy Taylor, Falmouth Public School Superintendent.
Thank you. In connection with this topic, I know that we discussed with the Bikeways Committee that the town was going to be outlining some next steps.
Correct. Okay, we have a couple PowerPoint slides on that, Madam Chair.
And I also see Mr. McConaty in the audience.
Madam Chair, members of the board, these are some suggested next steps that I'm bringing forth to the board. First, to suggest that let's see, I think this is the last step rather than the first. Where you can, with your help, we can rotate it. Okay, well, we've got one of the steps anyway. Yeah, if you can move it up to number, there we go. It's not going to want to advance for us. Thank you, Peter. We'll just move through it again. These are a series, a handful of recommendations on next steps to the board. Again, as a reminder, I know the board is aware, but a reminder for those watching, we want to acknowledge that the Main Street Davis Straits corridor design process will incorporate a multimodal transportation initiatives, including bike lanes in the Davis Straits area. Some of that's been discussed already with members of this board. That process will include public design presentations and meetings, yet additional meetings to come. And we'll move over to the next one. Thank you, Peter. I'm also suggesting that time must be taken to allow Public Works to further evaluate the Trotting Park Road segment for a number of public safety related issues, including regulating truck traffic, width of pavement, existing sidewalk, and related matters. And I do know in discussions with Public Works Director Ray Jack and Deputy Public Works Director Peter McConaty that process is underway and will continue to be unfolding with their able assistance. It may also may be that a more reasonable east-west alternative merits exploration with the oversight and assistance of the Public Works staff, given the concerns that have arisen about public safety, and I know those have been noted at some length here before the board, including the letter just read from Superintendent Nancy Taylor. Let's see, we have another, yeah, thank you. Public Works will continue to collaborate, very importantly, with the Bikeways Committee in utilizing appropriate roadway painting, symbols, and signage to convey expanded bike routes in a manner that recognizes the importance of public safety issues as it relates to bicyclists of all ages and all abilities. And I suggest that the Bikeways Committee work closely with Public Works staff in developing future initiatives for the Board of Selectmen review and approval. And then the last item on next steps is suggest that the Bikeways Committee give serious consideration to the shared use option of expanding the Shining Sea Bikeway to the Cape Cod Canal. This option would garner widespread support with the enhanced potential for an expedited process and meet the fundamental needs of all involved parties. And I know in general this process, Madam Chair, is an item that you referred to, working with the legislative delegation as well. and we look forward to that possibility, important possibility unfolding.
Ms. Braga? Doug?
Another next step I would love to try to include in there is, they've talked about the east-west connector going from the bike path all across Goodwill Park to Troy Park Road. I would say, even if we could do the connector from the bike path to Goodwill Park and not go beyond that, that would be worthwhile to investigate as its own piece. I just think there are a lot of people who want to bike on the bike path and then get to one of our prime places to swim in fresh water, to that wonderful playgrounds there. And even if it didn't go onto Gifford Street to Troy Park, but to push DOT and see, is there a way that that can possibly be done safely as another next step to look into?
On Palmer Street?
Yeah, crossing Palmer Ave.
Okay, well, we'd be happy to do that. I just as a reminder to the board, we have had the Public Works Department comment on the professional opinion of the board that they think that an at-grade crossing at that location is a public safety hazard. And I believe that they would suggest consideration for grade separation there only, grade separated crossing because of the at-grade concerns.
On Palmer Ave?
On Palmer Ave, correct.
And also the Department of Transportation has not been interested in putting that kind of barrier in a state highway. Just kind of, the Department of Transportation thinks about it as moving cars, and that's sort of the safest way to use that road. So that's another thing for us to consider. Megan?
I guess when I look at sort of this whole topic, I mean, we have spent really a lot of time in the last few meetings talking about some of these bikeways issues, and so I think it really does warrant, we have a committee, but, to just be slightly critical of the process, the committee has done an enormous amount of work, and I think what's been missing is that I think it's something that perhaps the board has to drive a little bit more, the conversation, because I think we have a committee that's working really hard. And then, DPW already has a lot of work that they're doing. And so to just kind of shift it to DPW and Bikeways to come up with this plan that they present to the Board of Selectmen, I think that kind of gets us back to some of the difficulties where we've been. I mean, I think it's perhaps something that we, think about, how does the board perhaps facilitate a broader discussion, maybe, a public discussion that includes some input from DPW, from Bikeways, maybe from individuals who are on planning board, from the public, to talk about what are some of the priorities, where are the challenges, what are some of the opportunities that exist that are easier to do, and which things are more challenging. Because I feel like what's happening is that Bikeways is creating a lot of suggestions, and there are real challenges to those suggestions. If nobody's putting up artificial barriers, there are real challenges to some of these crossings. Some of the things are out of the control of this town because they're state-owned roadways. But it seems like instead of continuously talking about great things that could happen, but not having the sort of foundation in place to how those things could happen, to me, and I'm the liaison to Bikeways Committee, so I certainly don't mind helping to facilitate that, but I feel like this is such an important issue that it should be something that maybe the board helps to direct in a way that brings about some action. Because right now, I think, Bikeways has a plan, it was presented, clearly a lot of the public was unaware of it. We've started this conversation, which I think is really positive, but I don't know if I see the conversation being productive if we just sort of go back to what the process has been, which is Bikeways, talk to DPW, then everybody can come back to the Board of Selectmen. That's sort of what, I see all the emails that Peter and Ray answer all of the time from Scott, and Scott Lindell, and I see all of the emails that Scott sends that are really, very thoughtful and worked out, and I just think it requires some more direction from the policy setting board, and maybe again from input from planning department and of course public input.
I think that's a perfect comment because, I see the Ticket Association here. That's one of our direct lines of communication. Mm-hmm. And, it sort of leads us into what will be the next topic, which is the board's communication with the community. And so I think that, just the way we've done the action committee, with respect to coastal concerns, there's a parallel here to actually moving this initiative ahead, and that maybe, the policy board, as you say, could take more of a leadership role.
Thinking of some collaborative group that has representation from some of the neighborhood associations, again, bikeways, someone from DPW.
The neighborhood.
Someone from, right, the neighborhood, Trotting Park, but there are other neighborhoods that, larger that are affected, that I think people can really problem solve because they know their neighborhoods, the cyclists know those roads, the DPW knows those channels. So I think just in a way to not keep, frankly, having the same kind of conversation over and over again without any movement, I think it would be something, that it requires a little bit more structure.
Absolutely. Doug?
Oh, I think Doug's comment was, appropriate, that we should give direction, and giving direction to investigate the crossing at Palmer Avenue is a good start. We've got a connector that comes out from the bike path, leads people right to that spot, and it's a very dangerous spot, but we've already invited them. And to just say that the state won't allow it and we just let it go, I don't think we can do that. There's people crossing there now. They come out and they want to go to the park, so they just stand there and wait. So it's already happening, and we need to address it or figure out if we can address it with either a tunnel or an overpass. An overpass is going to require a lot of work. It's going to have to be really big, and we're going to have to move all the wires that are overhead. An underpass is going to require that we lower the sewer lines and stuff that's there, because there's only 5 feet of clearance now. So we'd have to dig up those pipes and drop those down. So, but we haven't really directed anyone to actually investigate it, and I think we should.
Sam?
Well, I don't think we should necessarily get into the details, but I'm not sure that we shouldn't be trying to look for a solution that might include accessing a Goodwill Park from Jones Road by putting sidewalk in there, let people cross at the light, and then having a safe way to go up to the entrance to Goodwill Park and get in that way. So I'd like to see us broaden this and look at other options, because Department of Transportation, MDOT, is not necessarily going to go with some of the things that we want to do. We ought to have some backup ways of accomplishing this on our own.
I want to add one more element and ask the Chief of Police to come up, if you wouldn't mind. Another, because of a lot of folks being involved in this discussion and trying to find the best solution, it's taking time. And of course, there are folks who are kind of impatient. So I wondered if you would address some of the law enforcement issues that have come up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just recently, in the last month or so, and even more, the amount of vandalism and defacement to town property has been occurring. And just some examples. Vandalism that I'm talking about is occurring on the bike path, Oyster Pond Road, Clinton Ave, Surf Drive, and Robbins Road. And that is the marking using paint to mark the roadway. As well, just recently, cutting of trees and brush and town-owned land off of Trotting Park Road. These are crimes. And I'm going to speak to the individuals or the individuals who are responsible for this and basically let them know the Falmouth Police Department is investigating them actively, and we will prosecute those individuals or individual that has done this vandalism in the future. And what could we charge them with? Someone asked me that the other day. Well, what are you going to charge them with? They're just putting paint in the road. Well, what we're going to charge them with is malicious and wanton injuries to town property. And I'll just give you the penalties. Penalties for that is shall be punished not more than 2.5 years in jail or a fine of $1,500 or 3 times the value of the property. We can also charge them with tagging, the painting. Shall be punished by imprisonment for not more than 2 years in a house of correction or by a fine not less than $1,500, and upon conviction of said offense, the individual's driver's license will be suspended for 1 year. As for the trees, there's a section of Mass General Law, trees and fences, shall be punished by not more than 6 months or by a fine not more than $500. Another section of injuries to shrubs and trees of a fine not more than $500 and liable to all damages caused by this act. So that's what we'll charge the individual with when we do that. What I'm looking for also is the public's help. Somebody knows who's doing this, or somebody has observed something. So I'm looking for the public to step up and contact the Falmouth Police Department if they see somebody doing this, or if they have information, and they can do it anonymously, and we'll follow up on those leads. It has to stop. These people have to let the process work. As was said here tonight, the board's working on it, Department of Public Works are working on it, the Bikeways Committee, let them work on it. Let them come to a real solution. My concern is with some of these drawings, they're very good, by the way, some of the markings, but my concern is it's going to give false hope or false information to people who are using these, and it's going to cause serious harm, whether it's from the bicyclist or the automobile that's driving. So it has to stop, and it needs to stop now.
It certainly is dangerous, and it also takes town resources away from productive efforts because we then have to clean up those safety issues. So,
Absolutely. So.
Any questions from the board for the chief? Very much appreciate you coming this late. It's an important issue. It's a safety issue. And
very much. And we will continue to investigate it and hopefully get to a conclusion.
Glad you're on top of it. Thank you very much. Any other comments from the board? 5 minutes. Anyone from the audience have a comment? Please come right up. We'll do the same 5 minutes, a minute a person, unless there's a request for additional time. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Sue. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm Cheryl Williams, and I'm co-president of the T-Ticket Civic Association. And I just want to thank you, Mr. Suso and Doug, for coming to our annual meeting last week. One of the items on discussion was this connector. And as such, I do have a letter that I would like to put into record, if I may. And may I take the opportunity to read it?
Please
do. It's very short. Falmouth Board of Selectmen, subject Trotting Park Bikeway Connector. Dear members of the board, the T-Ticket Civic Association does not support or endorse utilizing Trotting Park Road as a bikeway connector. A vote was taken at our annual meeting last week. The myriad safety issues, in addition to traffic congestion and overutilization of the roadway by large delivery trucks, were major factors driving the negative vote. Thank you in advance for considering our input when making any decisions about this proposal. Signed, Cheryl Williams, co-president. So I was very heartened when you had taken all of our issues and you had a little bullet item, one of them being the truck deliveries. I also agree we are ready and willing before the fact and not after the horse is out of the barn to be included in any healthy discussion going forward, to give our input so we don't appear as negative Nellies all the time. We don't like to be negative Nellies. However, do it up front.
Thank you very much.
So if I may approach?
Please do. Thanks for your interest, and this is exactly what we need going forward.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Suso. Any other comments or questions? Sir? Mark first, and then Cynthia.
I'd just like to, I was thinking of it myself, and I'd just like to endorse Sam's suggestion. It seems like a quick way to get where we're going and relatively much more or less expensive than any of the other proposals, and especially if we consider Mr. Jones' suggestion that it only goes through Goodwill Park. I mean, I think going up, an improved sidewalk would be quick and easy and cheap.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir? Did you want to speak? Yes.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a throat injury. If you
That's
don't understand me,
we can understand. If you would state your name for the audience.
That's what my friends do. My name is David Payton. I live with 86 other people at the former United Church Apartment. I'm 71, and I checked in with my primary care physician. I now have lost very nearly 47 pounds, and my blood pressure, I don't mind telling anybody, is 118/68. I intend to hit 100. At one time I worked for the Stavola Construction Company as an engineering associate on road development. when I was out of college back in 1967. I worked for the town of town of Wellfleet for Arnold Carey, who was the city engineer for Boston, and he was my supervisor, and we laid out all kinds of stuff. I'm not insensitive to the idea that communities get disrupted by bicycles, particularly vandalism. And I've enjoyed a very good relationship, I hope, with police who have helped me with physical attacks on myself. Be that as it might, I've lived in Germany, Holland, Scotland, England, and learned to ride when I was 7 years old. I work at the Bike Lab, and I promote a fashion.
Thank you for that. We only have a couple more, really, half
right.
a minute.
Yeah, which I call my anti-collision wear. I'm sometimes saddened by seeing people riding without helmets, riding without bright clothing, taking chances on roadways. I'm reminded of a childhood that watched the Storrow Drive overpass go in. Technology to do that kind of an overpass can be created, and it can be craned in and placed within a matter of a few days.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Cynthia?
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the record, my name is Cynthia Rose. I am a resident of T-Ticket and so glad to see so many of my neighbors here. I have had such a delight in the last month getting to listen and hear, and I am so happy this evening to hear that so many suggestions were embodied in the proposal and then in your words, Megan. And what came to me is not what I wrote, but the words, be thankful for what you don't get. Because in this particular case, slowing down the process by declaring that the truth is Trotting Park is far too dangerous has given us another opportunity to get an urban civic planner instead of my great idea or your great idea. Although my great idea is absolutely the best. It should be the Gifford Street connector. But I do think the time has come that we control the conversation, we pull in professionals, we help the DPW out who are really championing helping people be safe, and we need to control the experience of bicyclists through our town. The Palmer Avenue crossing is exactly the kind of danger that can be designed around. And to head off the Route 28 T-Ticket nightmare that could have happened, I just look at as community working, and I'm very grateful for that tonight. So I thank you very much, and in the future, I hope that there is a way that communication can be better. There were things about this process that were so excellent, but there are also things about having a long-standing committee that has outserved probably everyone on that board, and developing a current plan that helps workers, students, people without cars, people who need to reduce the amount of driving they do into town. So I thank you very much, and I'm glad again to be able to have been here.
Appreciate your comments. Anyone else? All right, thank you. We'll move along. Mr. Johnson Staub.
Get your exercise.
That'll be great. This is on the Barnstable County Community Survey. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're just teeing up with Peter's able help. A brief PowerPoint. I'll lead it off, and Peter will take a few slides as well as we come to closure on it. Just in summary, I've been asked to provide comments regarding this survey from the county, received from the Barnstable County Commissioners. The survey in its entirety appears online on the Barnstable County website, and it encourages individuals to complete and forward their responses for subsequent tabulation by the county. And these comments from me are not intended to be all-inclusive, but are summary only. Thanks, Peter. The survey is divided into three principal parts. First, one that deals with county administrative services, purchasing, dredging, and information technology services. The second section deals with the various services of the Cape Cod Commission, the County Department of Human Services, and their Resource Development Office. A final section deals with the County Department of Health and Environment, County Emergency Preparedness, and the County Cooperative Extension Office. The county commissioners are attempting to gauge the relative benefit of each of these county services, presumably to prioritize them as it relates to possible funding challenges in the future. In general, Falmouth interacts with some regularity with the following county services, and in no particular order. First, purchasing, dredging, some limited aspects of information technology, such as countywide aerial mapping, open Cape facilitation, etc. The Cape Cod Commission, water and wastewater resources planning, land use planning, limited transportation planning, and beyond. In the human services area, affordable housing, health, aging, Children's Cove, and limited grant services. In the health and environment area, septic system, disease-related water quality and food inspections. Under emergency preparedness and cooperative extension, shellfish, coastal and flood erosion, tick-borne issues, recycling, and household hazardous waste, and also the County Fire Academy. And I would suggest the board's consideration of priority setting, representing those areas generally noted. And I know, Madam Chair, you wanted to have a an expanded discussion with the board about that. And Peter's also added some additional slides on with some financial information.
That would be terrifically helpful. Thank you.
Sure. So the amounts that the town of Falmouth contributes to Barnstable County and the Cape Cod Commission are via the assessments to the town, and these figures represent the total of both the county tax and the Cape Cod Commission so-called environmental protection tax. And as you can see, it's grown over the past 5 years from just under $900,000 to about $970,000. And I would just mention quickly, this is, I'm showing here the total of those two amounts, but it's very close to a 50-50 split between the county tax and the Cape Cod Commission tax. And so that's the money the town contributes to the county. What does the county provide? Just on a summary level, I just took the FY16 county budget, and I did a little bit of collapsing of categories, but the way the county, the various aspects of the county budget include administration, that's about 24%. The Cape Cod Commission represents about 17% of the total, and you see the dollar figures there as well. The Resource Development Office is their grant writing and grant administration office. The Cooperative Extension is about 2.5 million, 8%. The Registry of Deeds, which has its own dedicated funding source, represents 2.8 million, 9%. The county dredge spends countywide about 1.7 million per year. The county list joint initiatives, health and environment represents a significant portion, 3.1 million, 10%. I won't read all of the amounts there, but you can see there's a public safety line for 1.3 million, 4%. The fire training is $500,000, 2%. And water quality, $1 million, 3%. The debt reserves and various other transfers represents the remaining 5%. So you note the total for the county budget is 31 million, and there's a significant portion of that that does not come from assessments to the towns. There is the deed tax and some other county revenues that make up the rest of that. So that's just a very quick overview of the county finances.
So Sam, just before we get to specific questions, one of the goals in terms of this outline is, of course, as was stated by the town manager, to look at, putting the answers to the survey and submitting that to the county. But along with this timing, I'm, also, as everyone knows, the elected member to the legislative body for the county, which is the Assembly of Delegates. So on behalf of Falmouth, in the legislative body of the Assembly, Falmouth gets just under 15% of the vote. It's a weighted vote for all the Cape communities. And one of the things that the Assembly votes on is, of course, the budget. You also, I would feel remiss if I did not mention the very colorful news reporting in terms of the current disagreements among the county commissioners. Mary Pat Flynn is from Falmouth, of course, former member of the Board of Selectmen. She is one commissioner. Leo Kahunas is another commissioner. And Ron, his name's escaped me. Sorry, Ron. Ron Beatty is the third commissioner. And there's a lot in the news about, how effective the county is the idea of the Cape being an island and consolidating and cooperating in services still a good idea. For example, the dredge, there was just recently a second dredge purchased that's probably going to be delivered in about 6 weeks or so, if I remember correctly. So I think we'll see the effect of that. But while all of this discourse is going on in the animated discussions among the county commissioners, one of which is a report about the state auditor that just came out, where there was some, the audit was requested by the county by its new administrator, Jack Units, and the report came back with a lot of suggestions in terms of using county assets, particularly land and building leases. The county should be getting more out of that. Those are currently being reviewed, and some other suggestions. So I just wanted this board to have the opportunity to have a really, big impact where we do have the second highest weighted vote in terms of the way the county is run going forward. From the insider user's point of view, what does Falmouth most want, need, and demand from the county going forward? And I think we want to make our voice heard very loudly that we want the county back to business. We want it to be able to continue running much more efficiently, as the chair, Leo Kahunas, has already implemented some suggestions for. He's put a tight rein on expenditures, and Jack Units has, along with the treasurer, have done a lot of kind of cutting back and very serious, review of the finances. So with kind of that umbrella view, I just wanted us to start thinking about this survey. I thought it would make a lot more sense for folks that actually use it, boots on the ground, our important advisors from the Treasury to the management, the town manager's office, to give us some guidance. But I think we all really need to look at it and give it some consideration going forward. So sorry for that long lead-in, Sam, but I know you had a question.
Yes, and it's a very specific question, and it refers to Peter's financials. Does the sheriff's office included in those costs?
No.
That's part of the state
Correct.
funding, right? Thank you.
Doug?
I just feel like until I became selectman, I was really not very aware of what the county was doing for us. I don't think they very effectively reach out and explain what's going on. And even as a selectman, I went to the dredging meeting up in Plymouth last week to say, we need some more dredging happening, and we need to, have a reliable schedule of dredging, because a lot of stuff doesn't get done every year. And it was surprising to me that one of the guys sitting behind me is representing the Barnstable County Dredge, and I can hear him after I sat down and made my comments. He goes, "Yeah, we're putting together another dredge right now," which I didn't even realize that. I mean, it's great that they're doing that, but it would be good for them to let us know. And what the schedule is going to be and what type of improvements we can expect.
And availability.
And availability and commitments.
Well, I think that that wasn't known because it was reported to the assembly, if I understood correctly, that there was new technology that was coming out just as the county dredge contract for the new dredge came due. And so the provider held off and put some of the new items in. So I think the county it was beyond the time it should have been delivered. And so the county was hesitant to get the schedule and new operations out there because there was some level of unsurety from the actual manufacturer. So your point is well taken, and I expect it to be answered and clarified very soon, within the next month or so. Megan?
But I think, just to Doug's point, not about the dredge, but just a general sort of comment, that I think, you know, that visibility about what the county does, and, you know, part and parcel of that is a little housekeeping, which, as you noted, they're starting to do. And that's a piece that I think it's really important for not only boards and town administrators, but also just, you know, citizens to understand, number one, you know, this is something that we are paying money into. This is something that, you know, benefits us absolutely. I have no doubts with that. The regional look at, you know, some of the hardest and most entrenched challenges, I think is, you know, absolutely essential. But, you know, I think the audit, and I think some of the current things that are taking place have really put a spotlight on the fact that, you know, in order for this body to function to the sort of the maximum, it's really important for boards and for individuals to put that sort of pressure and pay attention so that, you know, all of those resources are maximized for us. I mean, the fact that there could be leases that are bringing more money into the county, I mean, I'm glad they're looking at that. I think it's long overdue. I'm glad it's finally happening. But also some of that, some of those interpersonal things that are going on in terms of really management. You know, I would like to see, professionalize isn't the right word because everyone is a professional, but, you know, I like that idea of you know, this is sort of a first step of that, but that really reaching back to the towns for input and guidance in that way. So there's that constant dialogue and really transparency going on, because I think the potential for what the county can do and what they've already done is really significant. And I just, you know, I don't think we want to lose that. There are enough folks that are critiquing it, and there are some things that absolutely deserve some review and criticism, but it serves such an important process that I think we need to make sure that we promote and have transparency so that people know what it does, know the value, and can get questions answered about, you know, exactly where the money is coming from, where is it going. Those answers are there, but I don't think we just don't get it enough.
Absolutely, and I credit the chair, Lee Kahunas, with reaching out to the towns and asking, you know, what would benefit Falmouth the most, so that the resources can be shifted to the most important areas. And in years past, Julia Taylor was the assembly representative for 19 years. Right. And so I'm very new, but I understand that the county commissioners used to come to all the boards of selectmen and have a dialogue. What's going on, you know, at the county? What would you like to see at the executive level? And I've had that conversation with Leo, and I think that, you know, I wonder if this board would appreciate the commissioners coming and maybe doing a meeting, just the way, you know, we've been working with our committees and other folks, just so that we have a, you know, more of a collegial relationship. We know who they are, we know what their interests are, their levels, you know, that they all have different expertise, right. And I think that would be great to know.
Yeah.
Sam?
I gather that they really are looking for public participation in this survey?
As well. Mm-hmm.
Is there a website address that we could advertise so
the
that people could go?
Barnstable County website, if you just punch in Barnstable County, it pops right up.
And you'll find survey as one of the icons there?
It's pretty pronounced.
Is there any way to make that something that we can promote through our website if people?
Great idea.
I think that's, the more we can
get to it.
more we can do that, maybe FCTV can put it up on their bulletin so that we can actually encourage, because that's always the issue you have is just what percentage of your population are you actually contacting? And the more we can get people to participate, I think the more valuable the survey will be.
And I think that's information would be great for Falmouth to see, so that we can request,
What came from, if they're
What
able
came
to
from
segregate
Falmouth.
like that, which obviously they
Exactly.
will, because that's the whole point of it, so.
Absolutely. Anyone else? So, this is just kind of an introduction. I think, going at the next presentation, maybe if any of the board has some particular interests or questions or ideas, I'm happy to follow up as needed.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thanks. And next, we have the very exciting Community Engagement Initiative presentation by Mr. Johnson-Staub.
Thank you.
I guess.
Yeah, at the Selectmen's retreat, we had a conversation. One of the priority areas from the last year was visioning, and that discussion resulted in a slight change in that priority area to community engagement, and the reason for that change was that I think wanted, or the board, I should say, wanted to clarify that this is not seeking to redo the local comprehensive planning process that the planning board had already undertaken, but was really more about community engagement in the role of the Board of Selectmen in communicating with the public and engaging the public in local government. So what I had in my notes as the outcome of that conversation, I outlined in the memo, but I thought maybe just take a moment to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what that goal or priority area is about. And what I heard was to be more effective in serving the community by pursuing new methods for soliciting community input and for informing the community of the town's plans and operations, to better understand what the community priorities are and learn how the board can be more effective, and to engage more community members in town affairs. Does that sound like
Absolutely.
what you were? Okay, terrific. So then, Madam Chair, you asked that I put together a couple of options and some timeframes for going about that, and some of them were touched on at the retreat discussion as well. In my memo, I've outlined 3 potential next steps for the board's consideration. One is a survey, another is a community forum, and the last is an engagement committee. What I did is I poked around a little bit on the web and looked at what some other communities have done. I spoke to some representatives of other communities to talk about community engagement and visioning activities that they have undertaken. I did find that a number of them, the visioning work that they did was tied to the local comprehensive plan. So some of those models from Acton and Truro and Brewster are a little bit different than what we're pursuing here. The town of Lexington actually was more similar, I think, to what we are looking for here. They had a multi-year ongoing initiative. They did spend quite a bit of resources on consulting help, and I think it was 10 hours a month ongoing for multiple years for the management analyst, which is a full-time position in the manager's office in Lexington. One of the takeaways from that conversation was that she felt that the initiative could have been more effective if it had more clearly defined goals at the outset. What she relayed their experience was that they had an override fail, and then they had another issue about a traffic light that sort of exploded, and that prompted them to say, we need to do a better job engaging. And they went about engaging, and they set up a committee, and they had a number of community forums and focus groups and charrettes, but they did not have a specific goal in mind. So for what that's worth, that was sort of the feedback that I got from Lexington. But to dive in a little bit on the survey, there are a couple of different approaches that you could take. You know, the resources required depend on the method that you choose, but it really starts with what is the goal. If the goal is engagement, and you're not looking for really definitive information that you have some confidence is representative of the entire community, then you can do a simple online survey, and you can you can get the feedback that you get and know that some more people got involved, and maybe it points you in a direction to look into more closely, but it doesn't give you a conclusion of this is what the community thinks. Then on the other end of the spectrum is a random sample survey, where you hire an outside group to do either a mail-based or a telephone-based survey, and that can be a significant expense. And then I did find just today sort of an in-between option. There is a national citizen survey that is endorsed by the ICMA, the International City County Management Association, and they have sort of a boilerplate citizen survey instrument that they use, and the cost of that is about $15,000. It is a random sample survey. So again, the purpose of that is if you want to gauge in a real representative way what does the community feel about satisfaction on a number of these issues, this is a good way to go about it. They will mail out 1,500 mailers, and then they'll do follow-ups on those mailers to get a high rate of return on those 1,500. So it is not something where you can say, oh, and we'll promote it in all these ways, and we'll hand it out, and we'll put it online, because the minute you start doing that, it's not representative random sample.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm looking at one of the surveys from the couple of the questions from Hanover. One of them is, where do you go for information on town services or government? And then there are boxes to check whether it's a neighbor, whether it's a town official, Twitter, Facebook, website, cable TV, or newspaper. So that sort of general question, I think would, first of all, it's something that could be designed by, staff in terms of it, a similar question. It's a check the box. You can kind of Xerox and mail it or email it even, or have it on the town website and download it. But, that I think would be useful for any number of issues in terms of, how do you learn about initiatives that the town is proposing? And so how, as a citizen, how do you give your personal feedback? I mean, you can become a town meeting member, you can vote, but how do you give feedback so that when the board wants to, for example, Selectman English Braga just was talking about engagement on the bike path. So if we had that sort of general question, we might know that the most prominent place folks look for information might be the town website. So we might put on the town website, are you interested in being part of a committee to look at various ways to make biking more easier and safer, or something like that. So that kind of general question I think can speak to some of the specific issues, but I don't think that I wouldn't want a survey that we'd have to keep changing for whatever initiative we were doing. So I think things, there is kind of an upside to a general simple survey.
Yeah, I would say, the Hanover example is kind of a nice example. It could be logistically, one piece of paper, a front and back, and it's very general. It's not specific to really any particular type of project. It's just really some general, obviously not all of these apply, but it's a general kind of quality of life, quality of services.
I like this question. Rate how important, if at all, you think it is for Hanover to focus on each of the following. And one of them is funding community preservation. Another one is building a new fire station. Another one is building an addition to a school. And last one is building a new highway garage. So, I suppose you could have,
one small
broad
section like that. But this isn't, sometimes when you think of surveys, we're just looked at one. They're, multiple pages. These are things that could go out if we decided to do it ourselves, if we crafted one ourselves. It could go out in a number of ways. It could go out maybe with tax bill, and then, we want to hit other folks who aren't homeowners but are renting, so maybe it goes out in other ways. There are different ways that we could distribute it throughout the town that wouldn't, if it's one piece of paper front and back, that wouldn't be an enormous cost. I just think, initially diving into this, it seems like if the goal is to get some, we already have a local comprehensive plan. We're not looking for that level of detail. We really are looking to solicit input and create more community conversation and engagement. So I think if that's the goal, then obviously, as Peter is saying, that drives what your mechanism to connect with people looks like, right? And that's different than if you're asking for really specific, suggestions about something like some of these other towns did, about more of a vision, which is more, we already have some of that done.
Madam Chair, if I could just interject. I spoke to Troy Clarkson as well as the project manager who was really responsible, hands-on, for compiling the results of their survey. And I just want to come back to, they did it very, with in-house staff and no outside expense.
Right.
The key was there was no paper. There was no option to fill it out on paper, no mailing. You could you can do a lot of outreach, and they did, to drive people to go fill out the online survey, because then you don't have to key in the data again.
Right.
That's a big sort of cost barrier. I just wanted to
yeah.
get that point out there, that if you use an online survey,
That's how
you're
to keep
saving
the
the
cost
labor
down.
time of having to do the data entry.
Very good point, Sam.
Yeah. I've been a teacher and done a lot of assessment. I think Doug can relate to this. You really have to think about what you're trying to get in the way of information from the population that you're surveying. And we can talk about the mechanisms till we're blue in the face, but I think we need to ask ourselves, what on earth is this survey going to do for us? And if we don't start there, we're just wasting our time. And the other thought is, if we wanted to do paper, we have our polling machines that do read, very simple image reading. I don't see why we can't program them, essentially, if we have at least part of the population that doesn't have easy access to computers and the internet and what have you. So it seems to me there are mechanisms to actually broaden the access. But we ought to start with asking the question, what do we want to get out of this survey? And I wholeheartedly support this, because I think we don't do enough, essentially, sampling of basically how well are we doing as a town in meeting the needs of this community. And we ought to be doing this on a regular basis of getting people's evaluation of how good a job the town is doing in meeting the needs of the community. And I don't think we do it. Honestly, other towns do, but I haven't seen any mechanism that Falmouth does on a regular basis and really be able to look at a continuum of time. Are we improving or are we not? Not just what aren't we not doing well, but are we accomplishing any improvements over time? And that's, to me, let's figure out what we want to survey, and then let's make sure that we can do it over a series of samples, not just simply one survey, one shot.
Great point. Doug?
I think you answered your own question. We want to know,
we want to know.
how we're doing.
Well, but I think we have to drill down to the specifics, because if you just ask that question, you're going to get a narrative response, and that you can't track.
No, but I think your point, I think it's a great point. I think it's probably the next step, right? Is the next step is to really, I know that Peter has put together survey as an option, community forum as an option, engagement committee as an option, but to me, my opinion is that the survey is a great starting point, because community forum, in some ways, we're going to still get, you could do a lot of work to get people there, but I think you initially, first of all, what are you going to talk about? If the goal is first to find out some of what you're talking about, Sam, how do you feel your town, governance is working? What ways is it not working for you? What would you like to see improved? That's better, I think, you can glean that better from a survey than you perhaps can from a community forum, where there's no way to track, people's comments are just people's comments coming in. There's not like a quantitative way to track that.
Right.
So to me, a survey.
But I'm not suggesting that there only be
Oh,
one
no,
track.
I'm saying if there's.
That survey should evolve, right? You're going to find out more questions. People are saying, I don't care about that, but I'd rather see some information about this, So it's a process that we're going to enter into.
And I think you have, to me, it's, the survey maybe is the first piece. We all talked about at our meeting about a community meeting, about that engagement. I think that has to happen, that piece of being in the same space, working through whatever, but what you're working through, I think, comes in part from the survey, or is guided by that, so.
I think that's a perfect, sort of plan, in the sense of start with the survey to get the information, and then what was done in the past was for example, Eric Turkington did a sense of place. So I think we can take the base of information from the survey and then maybe move that to the community forum. So
I would actually go
Doug?
the other way.
Yeah,
I would go to the forum first. It's the quickest, easiest one we can do, and have that information we get, which is just words, ideas, thoughts, create the survey, because the survey then creates the data.
Right.
But we have to actually do more work on creating that survey, ask the questions, figure out, do we want to do a randomized survey where it's going out to 1,000 people? Or do we want to have a survey that's just going to survey the people who always answer the questions and not, I mean, I think the forum can give us directions to where we go with the survey.
What would a forum, I mean, I know we're just in the initial, but in sort of, what would that forum look like? Would it be around a specific topic that we ask people? Are we breaking into, I guess, and that's where we could perhaps have a professional, guide us in that. But I just foresee if we don't do it really well, it just becomes an exercise in folks, getting up and expressing either positive or negative, which is great, but not moving us, so.
Well, that's why it has to then lead to, the outcome they're going to see is the survey that is following up specifically on the stuff they've told us. Don't ask us about how we're doing on the beaches. Ask us about these are the issues we care about and pursue that because they've told us. You guys are always concerned about that issue. You really need to be concerned about this issue.
So it sounds like we'd be opening the design of the survey to the community, which, I think has some upsides. And even if it was a simple charrette, I mean, in terms of means, then we wouldn't need to spend money on a consultant.
Just some brainstorming for what the survey could be.
Have a piece of paper about that size and just put the words out there in terms of what people had the most interest in, and maybe use that information to design the survey after.
And then another community forum after we've done the survey with the data, okay?
Right. Absolutely.
Report back to whoever wants to show up.
Yeah.
Because of the data that we have.
Some symmetry. Peter?
Yeah, I just want to make two comments. One, I think that, I think the idea of having the community forum first works perfectly well, but I still think we need a plan. You don't go into the community forum just saying, hey, what do you want to talk about? So I think the surveys, and I can certainly go back to some of the other communities and their community forums and charrettes to see how they began. But I think we get into the same thing, that before we jump into a community forum, we need to know what is it that we're trying to find out at this community forum. And I think maybe it's not that hard. I think there are sort of two broad categories that perhaps we want to start with. One is how are we doing? And you can ask that in a number of different ways. You can ask it about the selectmen, the town more generally. And then the other is, what do you want to talk about? What do you want us to take action on? What are your priorities?
What are we missing?
Yeah, and the only trick there is, again, not to, we have the local comprehensive plan, that's land use. What do you want the town to look like? So we're not repapering that ground, but, what priorities do you want us to set?
It's really a customer service endeavor. I mean, I think that was the foundation that the board laid at our strategic planning. We want to know, how can we serve you better? How can we, deliver the service in the best way?
And what are the services? I mean, what are some of the services, that maybe we're not meeting? What are some of those needs, or that could be met in different ways? So
And I think there's going to be broad overlap with the topics we want to cover at this forum and the topics that some other communities have covered in their surveys.
Sure, yeah.
So I think we can get there. The second point I wanted to make real quick is I just wanted to, again, make a plug for a professional facilitator. Maybe we can find one to volunteer. I don't think it's going to be a ton of money, but, having been in, I think if we have another meeting that people come to and they hear people talk, no one's going to come, and even if they do, the content won't be great. Having planned breakout sessions and skilled facilitators will make a huge difference in the quality of the information that we get.
So next steps, I mean, maybe would be to hone what you've already done with the comments that the board has already given, and then try to put some more numbers on it. So I don't think there's a desire to spend a lot of money, but I think there certainly may be a big, value added if we spend some money. I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Sam?
I just want to say, I think it's I think we should start with a forum, but we definitely need to start with a construct that we think, kind of covers the waterfront, but not limit where it might go after that. But you need to really seed the discussion. If nothing else, it prompts people to start thinking, where maybe they don't have any experience in a particular area, they're not even going to think about that. But if we can see that whole open forum kind of thing with ideas or areas that we want to cover, I think we'll get a lot more out of it and probably prompt some creative thinking about what we missed.
And I think to Peter's point, we would structure some of that, but that's what a good facilitator can really run with it. You give it to them and they run with it and they hopefully get a lot more out of it than, if we were up there doing it, so.
How could we support Peter, how could we support you in crafting or the structure of this forum?
I think you've given me enough to start with, and I think I need to present some ideas for you to react to.
I mean, should we have a working committee that works outside of this committee to do it? Or?
Maybe that would be the next step after we have an outline.
Sure, that'd be great.
And the only other thing that comes to mind is terrible as it is to try to coordinate summers, I think it would be great to do it during a summertime when we have all of our, our entire population, not just the folks that are here all year, but we also have folks that are here for the summer.
That was going to be my next question, is date. We had talked about potentially, I think Doug had suggested February, and, we don't necessarily have to limit ourselves to one. I don't know, maybe you want to look at February and then another one in the summer to make sure you do
I kind of like that idea, just because I think it holds our feet to the fire to get something done sooner, and again, I agree. I think, maybe it's two parts, maybe you have, as Sam says, this is an ongoing, process and conversation, but, I think it would be, I think it's important to get something done maybe a little bit sooner, and we had set that February date, and I hate to let it go because we talked about that for a while. And
So I think the Hanover survey could be used as a template and just tailored to our needs. And I think we might want to consider about having two surveys. Do the one in February, call it the resident survey, and I think we might get a whole different feedback from the summer residents. And maybe we need to have kind of two angles at it because it's very different needs.
True. That's a good thing to keep in mind.
Needs to get input from them, for sure.
Thank you all.
This is great, thank you. This is really, I think, putting some, movement on something we've talked about for a little bit.
Absolutely. So we've done the minutes. We're down to individual selectmen's reports. Doug, do you want to start?
Sure. I was happy to go up to Dennis and stand in the hot sun with Julian and get our coastal zone management grant for the study of Minot Beach, which was really great, and that was very good for Vinnie DiMacedo did a lot of work, I guess, to help us get that, and Lance Lambros was there, and Mr. Suso did a great job of speaking for us. I also attended the Mara Vista Heights Association meeting, and they are really interested in bringing to town meeting their discussion about the beach bylaws for the beaches. And I told them that you had already mentioned that we were trying to put forward an initiative to at least review that bylaw, so we need to maybe discuss where we're at with that. I also attended the T-Ticket Civic Association meeting, and as you know, they voiced their concerns here tonight, so I don't need to report much from that.
Thanks for that. Sam?
Now, I attended the CPC meeting last Thursday, as well as Peter and Julian, and they did an excellent job of really laying out the groundwork for the purchase of the Tony Andrews farm and some of the factors that are driving it. So I'm not going to belabor that anymore. And we, of course, have just heard a presentation from the working group. So that was pretty much the significant things that I've done. The rest of it's been sort of personal house projects and stuff like that.
We're not talking about puppies now, come on.
and driving old jalopies with my son.
Yeah, just mostly some of the liaison meetings. We have an upcoming presentation from Solid Waste Advisory that's coming in October.
Great.
So just nice to hear, some of their thoughts about what they're going to present to this board on that topic, which is, as we know, because we talked about it tonight, which is, really an important issue for the town going forward. And then just, again, some community activities that just remind me of how, wonderfully engaged and really active this community is and how quickly people can come together. So that's about it.
That's right, I saw you at the No
Yes.
Place for Hate. And
Yes.
They're all, and Simone kind of took over.
Yeah, my daughter took over and, you know, was like really accosting every dog that was within the entire Main Street area,
We're going to
so.
be stealing Sam's
Can I
puppies.
can I get another second for,
Oh, sure, pardon me.
to plug my East Falmouth Village Association Pride Day? We had a field day at the East Falmouth School yesterday, and it was supposed to be Saturday, but it was kind of rainy, so we
I
put it
went
off
there
till Sunday.
Saturday.
Did you?
Yes.
Did you have fun?
It was great. We drove through the parking lot. Yeah.
So yesterday was a good day. I mean, we didn't have quite the attendance we might have had if the weather was good Saturday, but we're going to try to make that an annual event.
Great.
And we had a dunk tank and fire apparatus and police and a lot of vendors there. It was nice. It was a
That
good
is
time.
a great thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work putting that together, so it's much appreciated. You
Yeah.
do a lot of that.
We got a good crew there.
It was great. Doug?
Are we holding off on the executive minutes?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
we are.
Right.
There was a note about that. I made a quick announcement.
I must have missed it. Okay, I'm all set, thanks.
Peter, Julian?
Thanks, Madam Chair. I wanted to provide an update on the senior center, a status update for the board. I know I had transmitted that information, and just want to go through that quickly, if I may, Madam Chair.
Please.
The board will recall the express need to create additional public parking on the Gus Canny Community Center site to accommodate the new senior center. The internal staff working group has nearly completed its analysis and preparatory work regarding the necessary review and adjustment of this on-site parking. Town council, in consultation with the town planner and the building commissioner, has confirmed that the loan requirement to move forward with a revised expanded parking plan under the Falmouth zoning code is required site plan review and approval from the planning board. We anticipate engaging a qualified engineering and design consultant to complete the final draft site plans based upon a conceptual template which has been nearly completed with the assistance of the town engineer and the deputy public works director. Those plans are required to include a layout circulation plan, a drainage and grading plan, and a landscaping plan as part of the submission process to the planning board. This site plan process will be pursued with the planning board ideally in the month of October so that a final determination can be timely made yet this calendar year. Subject to the review and confirmation from the Board of Selectmen as to proceeding with either the traditional design bid build process or alternatively the construction manager at risk process, or CM at risk as it's called. The town will move forward with the procurement process for the owner's project manager, and subsequent to that, the procurement process for a building design architect. The OPM procurement will be timed so that engagement and work can begin shortly after the site plan permit is received. Be advised that choosing the CM at risk process would necessarily delay the procurement timetable noted in this update.
On that point, if I may, the CM at risk option, and I know we'll have a presentation for this going forward, it takes more time to put together because the contractor is more tied to the original pricing and estimates. And so that's something the board will hear about going forward in terms of the options. So I just wanted to, initials and that kind of thing.
Can I just, I was going to ask the question, can we have just a quick description of what the two are?
We'll do a presentation when it
Well, I
comes up.
understand that, but I mean, it would be nice if we could at least understand what the meaning of these words are. I mean, I probably know what the difference is, but I would like some clarification.
Sure.
Peter, can you jump in?
I'm by no means any expert, but went to a couple workshops on it. Jen Petit has actually been through construction manager at risk in Chatham, but the basic distinction is the traditional municipal model is you design it with an architect or designer, and then you bid it to a separate contractor.
Right.
And in the construction manager at risk, the firm that is going to actually construct the project is involved in developing the design at the outset. And you structure a contract so that they have an incentive to be able to control costs and to complete it quickly. So that's essentially it. It's, are you separately designing and saying, we're going to own the design totally ourselves, we'll work with the designer, and then we'll we'll put a very detailed specification out and hire a developer to build it, or do we partner with the developer in the beginning to design it and give them more of a role in shaping the project as we go forward? It's been used very successfully with very large
That's what I was gonna say.
public works type projects like sewer treatment plants, water treatment plants. It's
Airports.
less common for a relatively small building project like this.
How do you get a fair bid when you don't have the plans fully developed? Is it like a partial plan and then you finalize it with the chosen bidder?
I think it's more like, and I'm right up to the limit of my knowledge at this point, but I believe it works like a request for proposals process. You're evaluating the credentials of the firm more than you are the price.
Well, that's how you choose an architect.
Right, right.
And then, in this case, we would be choosing the architect and the builder in one shot.
Right, and then you're doing a sort of a cost estimating study in partnership with the firm.
The work, a lot more of the work is upfront, time-wise, for, before you're really moving forward, is my understanding. And so there are definitely some benefits in terms of maybe some cost control, and then there are some other challenges that can come with it in terms of what we've discussed. And I know we'll have a further, is Jennifer going to do our?
We can have Jennifer involved. You also need to have the Inspector General sign off
Right.
on the entire front-end process, which takes sometimes considerable period of time. So I think that's one of the reasons when you look in the Commonwealth, as has been mentioned, it's used mostly for very large, lumpy projects where the potential for cost savings is very great. Where you have projects $10 million and less, very, very few projects have proceeded in this manner because some of the savings are not going to be as great as you would have in the other the design bid build.
And I would think the design bid build thing would be more for like when there's limited contractors that are available to do a project like that anyway. With this...
To see them at risk, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right.
I would think that, I don't think that's probably appropriate for us.
Well, we'll have a discussion
Let's come back
about
to it.
that.
Yeah.
We'll be bringing that to you.
Thank you.
If I could just
Peter?
add one
Peter?
last point. When I was in Yarmouth, we were looking at this for, in the early stages of looking at it for sewer construction. And our consulting engineer was CDM Smith, and, large international engineering firm. They had done a study of, what is the savings from CM at risk, or how do the costs compare? And their analysis was there was really no material difference that they could identify from the two different methods, for what that's worth.
Interesting.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
another item, if I may, and if it's agreeable, I can place that update on the town website. The board would like me to do so?
The senior center, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, that I just presented.
Yes, thank you.
Also, the board may recall that we've been working diligently over the past several months with representatives of the vendor OpenGov in assembling considerable financial information for the purpose of making it available as a matter of routine for ease of online review and analysis by the general public. And as a further reminder, this is part of a broader initiative by multiple municipalities on Cape Cod, facilitated through the Cape Cod Commission to achieve some cost savings through economy of scale. Now, having said that, you should also be aware that the concept was actually pioneered by the town of Falmouth. We brought this to the Cape Cod Commission beginning back in 2015. The process has languished a bit in terms of the way it's unfolded. But although it's been unusually lengthy and challenging, if all goes as planned, there will be a rollout of this basic information by the multiple municipalities participating yet in the month of August, those being Falmouth, Chatham, Sandwich, Yarmouth, and Provincetown, and perhaps some additional municipalities may be added. This will be an evolving process with some variation in information provided initially by each town and some more information to be forthcoming soon.
What's the form of the rollout? Is it going to be like on the county website?
It
or-
will be online. We'll be providing a web address for all those who want to access it. And again, some of that is still evolving. It may take some additional forms as well, including obviously a link from the town's, Falmouth's website directly.
Terrific.
So we're excited about the possibilities, and it's still evolving and taking a bit longer than anybody anticipated, but we are enthusiastic about the possibilities that we see.
Great. Thanks for initiating
And I was
that.
pleased to, you're welcome. I was pleased to attend the meetings that were noted already, and that concludes my report.
Terrific.
And I will be willing to go and deliver this
Oh, that would be
Boy
great.
Scout thing
thank
So you
tomorrow.
need the proclamation then?
So does that mean I should hold on to this?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
German?
Pardon me?
There's a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Great.
Hosting services for FCTV.org are provided by MegaNet Communications. MegaNet offers a wide array of internet services, including Mega Backup Cloud Service, server colocation, T1, fiber, Metro Ethernet, as well as telephone services such as hosted PBX and digital voice. Their #1 goal is to keep your communications network up and running and allow you to focus on growing your business. 877-634-2638 or meganet.net.